Hello everybody, this is Saturday morning, this is the Desert Island Games, and this is Retro Bear speaking to you, welcome you once again to a brand new episode, and another insightful chat with another YouTuber. It's the first time you've heard this program. We ask a YouTuber to come on to the Desert Island with 6 of their favourite games. We ask them to give us some insights as to why they've picked those games to go with them. And on top of that, a second chance game, something they may have played previously, not quite got into, never finished, got to a certain point and couldn't get any further. And also on top of that, one game that they completely utterly despise, because we just like to make things a little more difficult for them. Along the way, we ask them to discuss their gaming history, systems they've played, games they've played, experiences, stories, anything that's relevant, all crammed into the tightest 3 hours on YouTube. I think it's the best way to describe it. And I'm very pleased to say that we have another recipient of the Retro Bear t-shirt with us this week. Somebody who's reasonably new to YouTube as well, and is fast becoming a very, very good friend of mine, which is always good as well, which is great to see. It is RetroRam 88. It is Liam. I should be calling him throughout the broadcast. And a big hello to you, Liam. Hello.
Hello, Bear. You all right?
I'm very well, thank you. And nice to see you here, and an absolute pleasure for you to come on and regale us with tales of your gaming history.
Oh, well, thank me afterwards if it's all right. You never know. Like I say, my memory is horrific. My wife always says that I've obviously got the weirdest memory. I can remember odd little snippets of stuff from when I was a kid. And she'd be like, how can you remember that? But you kind of remember to go and get bread from the Tesco. When that's all you go for. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I am the same. I have to write stuff down if I'm going out to do that. Whereas if I can go out, buying games or shopping for games or whatever, I know exactly what I'm going for, and I know exactly.
It's like Rain Man. You can remember what you've got.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think we have all the halves which are pretty much cut from the same cloth, to be honest with you. But there we go. Like I said, it's an absolute delight for you to come on and do this, mate, and I really do appreciate it. And I am looking forward to this, because I always like to get the list in front of me of the games you're taking with you beforehand, mainly because it helps me out a little bit. But I'm looking down this list, and I can think maybe 2 of these games we discussed with previous strandees on the desert island. So there's a lot of good stuff, some really interesting games as well, and some interesting systems, which is even better, really.
Yeah, I wanted to be a bit different. I didn't want to just say the same old stuff, but with anything like with my channel, everything's all on nostalgia and stuff like that. So it probably would be completely different. I've never had even as a kid, you'd never be one of them people that'd have the most amazing games or whatever. You just have the generic stuff that everyone's probably has played and doesn't think about, but you've got the story behind it as well. So.
That's right, and that's what people enjoy listening to. It's a story behind how you get there, and you've come prepared with notes as well, which we were talking about beforehand.
Yeah,
Liam has got some notes with him, which I can recommend, because this is 5 pages worth, wasn't it? but I do recommend when people do come on, if they want to make notes. It's the amount of people who've spoken to me on this, and then as soon as we've turned everything off, it's I forgot about that. Oh, I should have mentioned that, or I get a message the next day. Oh, you missed loads out. It's like, okay, well, we'll do another one at some point, maybe. I don't know, but the interesting thing about you, Lim, is not obviously you've got a big interest in games, but you have a lot of interest in other areas. So for those people who aren't aware of your channel on YouTube, and as I always say at the very beginning, I will put a link to Liam's channel, RetroRam 88, in the description below. But Liam, fill in the listeners as to what you do if they don't know what you do already.
So, the main one really is gaming. That's mainly from watching you guys, really. I've been a voyeur for many a year, so that's what got me started. But I am also big into toys, so also watch a lot of toy YouTube. Films, I've got a massive DVD, Blu-ray. Just started getting into VHS now, thanks to the VHS bootleggers, bastards.
They're responsible for a lot of stuff at the moment, aren't they? They are.
Yeah, because it's just watching them and you think, I just love. So yeah, collecting VHS has become a thing now. Apparently, it's one of them collector brains. You get one thing, you think, I'll just get another and another, and before you know it, you're like in Blockbuster's stock room. I'm trying to think what else there is. Music, really. I sort of I do enjoy vinyl. Collected that for many years. But yeah, this I don't try not to do as much of that now because it's become quite popular, hasn't it?
It
Sort of
has,
semi puts you off. Semi puts you off buying it,
but these are these things. When I was younger and getting into sort of my 20s, and vinyl was very much becoming a thing of the past, to the point where people, it'll never come back, and then it sort of crept back in to the rotation now. And in fact, you walk into somewhere like HMV, they've got massive racks of vinyl. It says VHS at the moment. I don't know what it is, but it's not just our little corner of YouTube. It seems to be across a lot of formats now. People are.
But I find the only thing with the VHS is I'm finding that it's still a place that you can, especially on like Marketplace or whatever, you can still find people giving away ones for free. Whereas I think everything else, people know there's some value in it, so you're never going to get that mega awesome bargain. But the good thing with VHS, obviously, it ain't on CEX, so you're never going to get a price comparison on that. Obviously, people might check eBay, but again, there's not much VHS that's worth a lot, really.
No. It's only the pre-cert stuff. And, the things that never made it a DVD. I'll never like you to make it a DVD or Blu-ray in the future, anyway. So,
but I'm still of that age where I remember having VHS. I'm not old, but I'm not young either. I'm sort of in between the two. So.
Yeah, I think it's great that you've got so many different interests that come so many different areas, and the toy stuff is very, very popular at the moment as well. A lot of people love the toys, and you tend to find it's one of these crossovers on gaming. If people enjoy gaming, most likely they're going to have something else they're into as well, like that. If it's not toys, it's VHS. If it's not VHS, like vinyl, as you said. So, or movies.
Even the toys, I'm blaming Dana for that. During lockdown, watching his streams, when he used to have the YouTubers on, and then he had some toy collectors on.
That's right.
So then you think, actually, I'll watch some of their channels, and that's it. So yeah, blame him for that.
It's a slippery slope, isn't it? You can blame him for a lot of things. He's a good lad, is Dana. He's a good lad. Hopefully, when he's going to get his shop open in a few weeks' time, I shall be down there and not buying anything, but I'll just pop in and see how he's getting on. But
on the 26th, isn't it?
26th and 27th, which I think is a Friday and a Saturday of November.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've been interested to see how that works out for him.
Yeah. Did you watch his live stream the other day?
I did. It was great. It really was. He said a lot of good things in that, and I'm hoping he'll come on here before Christmas.
Yeah.
If I can persuade him to, when I see him in a couple of weeks' time, I think I'm talking to him tomorrow morning about something else. So if I can try and persuade him to come on here before Christmas, that'd be great, because he's one of 2 or 3 people I've been trying to get on here since I started doing this. And it'd be great if he comes on. It'd be nice if him on the other side had been asked questions rather than him doing it the other way around.
Yeah.
See if we can get a good response from him. Right then, my friend. So let us crack on with the Desert Island Games format. And let's start with some of your gaming history, because we've got quite a lot of systems to talk about here. And you started with a system which I've heard of, but I don't think too many people will know an awful lot about. So why don't you sort of begin at the beginning, as it were?
So the first thing I have a real memory of, because a lot of the ones I've got on my list, I don't know which one actually did come first, but in my memory, this I feel is the first one, and it was the TV Boy.
Okay.
Which is the sort of just a plug and play, plug into the TV. It's just the controller, and basically all it had on it was Atari ROMs.
Right.
At the time, I didn't know that. It's only really through collecting that I recognised the games. So I've sort of written down a few of the games that I really remember loving. Because it had quite a few games on there, I believe. But you just
constantly Atari 2600, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So like the main ones I really loved. I've got River Raid. That was one of the better ones, really, wasn't it, on the Atari? Playing that, it was like anything with Atari ones. It's always about beating your own score, trying to do that bit better. And yeah, River Raid I really loved. Never amazing at it, I think you get to that point where you always get that little bit of frustration. You think, oh, I'll just go for this, or I'll just try not get the fuel, and then it just goes to shit.
Yeah.
Another classic is obviously Empire Strikes Back.
That is one I had originally.
So as a kid, I loved Star Wars. But yeah, to play that, again, I was horrific at it. Those walkers always used to just shoot me down constantly. You think, I don't know whether it was just a hitbox on it or what, but you think, oh, I'm nowhere near that, and you just go sailing into the ground like a dart. But yeah,
I mean that game had no end. It would just carry on.
No, yeah, it just carry on.
There's no ending to it. But I mean, yeah, when I was a kid, I absolutely loved that. I had the original cartridge, gave him the Parker Brothers box, the unique cartridge, is slightly different to the stuff with the ridges on it and the silver label.
It's one of the ones on my want list. My local gaming shop's just got the cart only, but it's, you know how sometimes they go a bit manky, the labels on the Atari cartridges. I just want a nice one. So I'm waiting, because hopefully I'll be going to the gaming market in December. So hopefully I can find a decent copy one. But yeah, I remember it was a little bit like Defender in a way. You know how you could keep going backwards and forwards, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You know.
You didn't have to do them in order. You could sort of jump ahead and do one, but you had to make sure you took care of the first one. Otherwise, it got 10, and that was the game over, wasn't it? Yeah.
And then I think my absolute favourite was Pitfall, just because it seemed so bright and colourful and different. Because from memory, I think the TV had a lot of crap on there, but there was some good games. And yeah, Pitfall was another great one, just because it had the different levels. Obviously, you've got the jumping over the rivers, you've got the crocodiles, you've got the barrels, and then you could go down, you've got the scorpions. It was so different on there. But yeah, I love that little system. I'm sure I played it for hours and hours, because it was so easy to hook up to the TV. I think it's something that my parents they probably got it from a car boot. That's where I got most of my consoles. We used to go to the one there's what I think it's called Polesworth Market. It's like the biggest car boot I've ever seen, like hundreds and hundreds of cars. And that's where we would go every bank holiday. We would probably spend like 4 or 5 hours there. That's how big it was.
Wow.
And there'd always be a few gaming stores that'd be there every year, or there'd always be something gaming related. And probably that was one of the purchases. And I love that, because before that I'd not really had anything. You know, I'd not even had like electronic games really. Like Game and Watch or anything. So I've not really got any experience with anything like that. So this was the first thing I really had. I know it's not really a gaming console, but oh god.
No, what year are we talking here?
I would imagine maybe like 5 or 6. So that'd be 93, 94.
Okay, that's quite late then, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. So I was really late to everything. We'll get through to that when I go through it. But yeah, I was late to everything really. But yeah, I'm sure it must have been. I can't imagine playing games when I was younger than that. Really.
I mean, those games like Pitfall. If you go back and play them now, Pitfall. I'm thinking of Heroes, another one as well, which I used to play quite a bit. Considering the basics of those games and limited memory they're working with, those games are quite big, and you can go back now and be quite astounded at just how large in size those games actually are when you think of the system they're running on.
Yeah. Well, I've got the junior console now, so there's quite a few games I do like to play. Golf is one. I bought Frostbite after watching your video on it. So, but then I've also got Mario Brothers as well. So yeah, so I'm blaming you for that one. You're my Atari addiction person. Before I had anything, I'll get the box. Before I had anything, I had that purely from a collection point of view. Just because I was fascinated with the fact, purely because it was obviously a Nintendo on a non-Nintendo system, which I found fascinating, you know. But yeah, it's.
I never played the original Mario Brothers on the 2600. Is it any good?
No, ask me one on sport. It's it's all right. It's not amazing,
Not amazing.
but
Oh, okay.
you get that with a lot of conversions on it, don't you? You sort of anything Atari. It's sometimes the box art is better than the actual game.
Yeah,
You know,
Kung Fu Master's a good one. I don't mind Kung Fu Master. That's not a bad one. But things like Rampage and Double Dragon, no, they're pretty ropey, those.
You have to use a lot of imagination.
A lot. The Double Dragon's case, you have to completely imagine it's a completely different game in front of you altogether. It's not a case of adding a few trees and backgrounds. No, you've got to imagine you're playing a completely different game. So I know the TV boy, but I've never had one or owned one or played on one before. So it sounds like an interesting little system.
It was sort of a while ago. Because I always knew in my head what it was, but I could never remember what the name was. And then I think it was this year, a few months ago. Ginger Hippie, he'd actually got one in one of his videos, and he held it up, and I was like, the nostalgia just slapped me in the face and said, "That was it. That is what I have." And all the memories come back, and I remember, TV boy. So that's one of the things I'm definitely on the lookout for as well. I don't think they're ever expensive, but it's one of those things just added to the forever growing shopping list.
But it does happen. You see other people showing things off on their channel. All of a sudden, you go, "Oh, I remember that." It's happened to me as well, and all of a sudden, I go, I've got to try and get a hold of a copy of that or that system, and it just happens.
Well, whenever you watch people's pickups, and you sat there with eBay open, CEX open, making notes on a notepad, just making a list. That's the problem.
I was on eBay the other night. So I was sleep deprivated on eBay. When people say they go on eBay drunk, I was actually on eBay half asleep. So I was sitting there watching the telly, and I was on my tablet. I was sitting there. When you get to my age, sort of like 10 o'clock in the evening, it's a bit exciting if you can start making that far without falling asleep. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, my head's going down like that, my fingers going like that, my tablet, And I'm looking at this game on eBay, and I'm like, oh, that's a good price. And then I think I bought it, and then I had to check my email the next morning to see if I had bought it, and I had bought it. And that's the first time I've ever, got on there and not been in full control of what I was doing. I must have known what I was doing.
At least it was a game,
I had to load my PayPal in. Yes, it was. Actually,
you don't want like a vintage set of Victorian dentures or something. You don't want that turning up in the post. It could be absolutely anything.
I'd still show it off though if I did buy that. Guess what I bought instead of buying this game? I look at this game tonight and end up with these dentures. Aren't they nice?
That'll be the next
I have to be careful about that. Yeah. I'm now collecting dentures. All this will be gone shortly behind me, and I'll just have like a denture collection. Sure. You blame me for Frostbite. I should blame you for my denture collection.
Okay.
But moving swiftly on. So after the TV boy, what did you find yourself getting into after that?
The original Game Boy.
Okay.
So again, this was more than likely a car boot purchase. I think originally the only game I had with it was the original sort of packing one, which was Tetris. And I remember I would sit on the sofa. I think they just gave it me to keep me quiet, probably, but I would play that for hours upon end, and even the music going through your head. Like, I defy anyone to not play that game, and even when you finish, your head will be humming that tune for hours upon end. So iconic. And then the other sort of ones I remember playing, obviously Alleyway. I'd like the little alleyway, the little Mario in the
little bath.
Also, then Killer Instinct was another one.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Killer Instinct is a toss up between this and something on my next system. I think is the first game I ever completed, and that was Killer Instinct. Because I remember doing like the story, like the campaign mode, where you pick one fighter and you have to work through everybody else. I remember the time I did that because I was struggling on that last fight for absolutely ages, and it's one of those where I'm pretty sure you had to start again. So if you died, that was it. It was start again, go through everything else, and I'm not the best at fighting games, so to complete that,
How did it play on the Game Boy though?
Pretty good from memory.
Yeah.
I haven't played it as an adult, but from memory, it was really good. It's not. I wouldn't say it's blocky or anything like that you can get with some of the old Game Boy games, where you sort of do have to use your imagination on the character still. But yeah, as I remember, it was really good. I don't think it was slow. Characters look really good. Yeah, it was a good game. It wasn't like fighting through treacle like you can get in other ones, but I suppose they sort of they would probably take bits out of the background to make it run better, as opposed to having fully detailed backgrounds that would probably slow the game down.
That sounds like a good idea for a series, fighting through treacle.
Yeah,
I could probably do a series on that, because that'd be me playing games. That would playing fighting games too.
Yeah, same. I don't really get on with them that well, but I think that's because I'm not very good. I find it frustrating if I'm not good at something. My patience is thin at the best of times. So when it comes to a fighting game, I give up. But then this is why it's so weird, because I remember spending hours on this. Whereas now, if I lost the first fight, the game would be back in its box and it'd be on the shelf. I wouldn't even give it another second. So, but yeah, then obviously you've got Mario 6 Golden Coins.
Mm-hmm.
That was another classic one. And then Kirby's Dreamland. Absolutely loved that. The music for that as well was stuck in my head. Listen to that little tune. Listen to the sound of the little eyes firing the like little star things at you, and obviously the sound of him sucking in the enemies, and yeah, because it's obviously like a downgraded version of the one that's on the NES, but at the time I'd never heard of an NES. It's only really as I started collecting that I sort of heard of it, because so and then obviously Pokemon, probably one of the biggest things in my life really for nostalgia. I had Pokemon Blue when I was a kid. I remember that coming out because it hit me the right sort of age when I was at school. So when that came out, I was at secondary school. You know, you're into collecting stuff. Started off originally with like football cards and stickers.
Yeah.
You know, in the albums, collecting Mighty Max stickers and stuff like that. I've got I think it's my Euro '96 Sainsbury's coin collection. I've got my original one of that all complete. So collecting's always been Pokemon cards in the games were stuff like that. It's always had big memories around Pokemon. Even dragging my dad around to his little swap meets with other kids. You know, he probably hated it, but it was one of the memories I have, especially of him as well. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not a Pokemon fan, to be honest, but I know we've had so many people on here who love it, and some people who absolutely hate it, and it sort of stays with you. I mean, you know, I take it it's still not saying an obsession, but it's still an interest of yours now, isn't it, Pokemon?
Yeah, it's one of those. I think it's like you said. Some people love it, some people hate it, but I think it depends how old you were when it came out. For me, it was the right sort of age, watching the cartoon, you know, having that card to collect. Because when I was a kid, I had the full original set of cards. And I remember selling them on like a few years after the first wave of it had dwindled a bit. I thought, I'll just sell it on now. I wish I'd have kept it, because I bet you couldn't buy a full set of first cards now for less than £500. And I had it all in lovely condition, so they're so expensive. But yeah, I think it's one of those. I do like it now. There's probably around the 3DS era. I didn't get into it as much. It got to the point where with a lot of the Pokemon ones, it's the same premise, just different characters and different Pokemon to collect. Whereas, like after a while, you're sort of wanting a bit more. So it's like I've been waiting for like the Switch versions of Pokemon for years and years and years. When and even now I'm not 100% with what's been churned out. It's not exactly what I'd like, but I think we're getting there. To me, in my head, it's like Breath of the Wild, but with Pokemon. You can go where you want, capture what you want. It's more realistic, whereas they've sort of half done that, but half kept it simplistic for kids. And when I've got older, and you can tell it's more for kids, you sort of think, okay, so it's waned a little bit, but the original love is still there. So
that's good. That's good.
But
what was your first impression of the Game Boy then, as a system? Did you fall in love with it straight away?
I remember loving it because it was because it was portable. It was one of them things I remember taking on holiday with me. So for me, my parents were older than most of my friends' ones. So my mum had me when she was 42. Right. So whenever we went on holiday, it was me, my mum, my aunt, and my uncle, and me. And that was every year. So we'd go 1 week, we'd go Skeggy. Another week, we'd go Blackpool. Sometimes we mixed it up and went to Torquay. It was the same every year. So wherever we went, long journeys in the car or on the train, and I would just sit there playing, burning through batteries. But it was something to keep me entertained. I mean, obviously, during the day we would probably go out, and my mum's obsessed with shopping, so we probably went around every clothes shop going, being dragged. You know, my mum and my aunt would go in the clothes shop. Me, my dad, and my uncle would stand outside or whatever, wait for them to come out, and that was it. And then at night time, it'd be arcades, going out that. It would be sort of my time, you know. They'd go out and play a bit of bingo while my dad would come round with me, and I'd be on the arcade machines. And I loved it because it was a big step up from the TV Boy, and obviously the fact that I could take it with me, so I could play it in the hotel room. If I could take it out with me if I wanted, if we were going anywhere. And for me, the graphics were fine, really. I mean, I didn't really have any much concept of graphics and what was good and what was bad back then, but because I'd never had anything other than the TV Boy. I'd had nothing previous. I'd had none of the microsystems, nothing like that. So it was early on in my gaming life. So to me, it was fantastic because it was a step up from what I had played originally.
It's always interesting to find out people's early experiences because I mean, you probably done it slightly differently to quite a few people. So you've got in with a sort of a ROM based plug and play, and then gone straight to the Game Boy. That's your first experience, and obviously from what you're saying there, you can see why it had that impression on you because you hadn't seen anything else like that before. So and the fact you can take it anywhere as well. It's a great little system, it really is, and you can see why it was so successful and sold so many flipping units as it went along. So I like the Game Boy. I love the Game Boy. I can't play it now because my eyes are shit. But I mean, it's.
I'm just waiting to get one of the. When somebody's obviously modded it and put a better screen on and have it maybe like the rechargeable battery. That's really what I'd like. That's probably on the shopping list at Doncaster, to be honest. But to get that, and because I've been rebuying recently, it's only really recently I've been rebuying some of the old Game Boy games because some of them are quite cheap still. But just to have that memory. Because I can play it on the big TV. I've got the RetroFeek, the multi-console system.
Yeah.
So I can play it on there if I wanted. But I think I'd rather have that handheld and get back that nostalgic feeling. That's purely what this function is. Oh, the Super one, yeah.
It's a Super Game Boy, which helps me a little bit nowadays. But I thought that was again a great invention to be able to plug that in the top of the Super Nintendo and put the cartridge in, and whether it comes out in a basic colours or not doesn't really make any difference. You can still play that game on. I can play something like a F1 race. It's like,
I remember F1 race. Yeah, that was another one I used to play when I was younger. Yeah,
cracking game that, and I'm put that on the big telly behind me, and on the Super Game Boy, it's brilliant. But I couldn't play it on the little screen now. Just can't do that.
No, you struggle. Yeah, it's purely from not having the backlight. I've recently just rebought a Game Boy Advance, and testing that, it is horrific. How I used to play that, I do not know. Like, even with the little crappy little spring lights I used to get over the top, I don't see what that would make.
It's a complete waste of time. I think I can't remember. I can't remember how I got hold of my light, the little spring light for it. I remember thinking, this will make a difference. It's absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
Yeah, you struggle to read a book with it.
Yeah, and you get to a certain point in the day with the daylight, and that's it. It's gone. It's completely useless. But it's again, it's a good system. I like the GBA. It's good, but
Yeah, well,
after
I think I used to have the one,
6 o'clock in the evening.
the light that came with the big magnifying lens on it.
Yeah.
You sort of feel as if you're like an old person trying to read a book or something. But yeah, it was huge. But even that made a difference from being able to visually see it. But yeah, the light on that was horrific as well. So, but yeah, very fond memories of it.
Good system, though. Good system. So we move from the Game Boy to your next system, and I like this system, one of my favourites. Go on then.
Yeah, so that was a Master System.
Yeah, what a system
So,
that is.
Other than the Game Boy, really, I'd not really had much experience with anything Nintendo. So for me, it was all Sega, pretty much. And again, this definitely would have been from the markets, like on like a big car boot market. So I really remember getting the games for this. So near us, we call it Donny Market because it's Castle Donington, not Doncaster. So they always used to do a Sunday, a bit like a car boot, but it had normal stores, like trader stores as well. And there was always a guy in there that would. I remember he was just like a little covered hut, like tarpaulin covered hut, games hanging down the side, and I always remember going and picking up a Master System game because it always used to be like £5-10 if that. They weren't expensive because I probably had this probably well into the Mega Drive's life. I got my Master System, so games were cheap for this, and it was perfect for me. Pocket money, spend a £5 on a game, got something new to play, and for me, it was mainly like platformers. For me, is the big draw for this system. So Castle of Illusion, that was an amazing game. Same with that, I've got the Lucky Dam Caper as well on my little list.
Oh,
that's another
Donald
one.
Yeah.
Donnie Duck, yeah. They were just fantastic little games. I know, like Disney ones always do. They always do great games. There's very rarely a crap Disney game. We won't mention Fantasia, but
I was going to say Fantasia just comes to mind about that, but we don't talk about that one. I don't think they do either. They prefer to ignore it.
They ignore it. But yeah, it was such a great game, and for me, I love the graphics on the Master System. I know it's slightly younger than the NES, sort of retrospectively, but I think the graphics on the Master System are far better than what the NES ones are. And yeah, those little games like Dynamite Ducks was another one I remember. Just being that little duck and punching things and this little side scrolling.
Doesn't get remembered all that well. I had that on the Amiga, and I remember it was generally, I think all the system conversions were adequate, but it was just generally not a great game. But I loved it. I used to love playing.
Yeah, I loved it as well. Yeah, but I think back then, obviously, for me, I didn't have many games. So I mean, obviously, a lot of people say this, but when you don't have many games, you play what you have got, whether initially you might like it or not. So you probably do grow to love these games, even if really now they're crap. But you've got that sort of memory with it. Then I've got obviously like the Ninja classic, cheap game, really great fun, music. Very difficult. Yeah, great music. Yeah, very difficult. But back then, Ninjas. For that sort of age, it probably would have been because I would have been a big Turtles fan then. So anything Ninja would have been on my radar. So seeing this and the box with the picture of it, that would have sold it to me straight away. And Shinobi, that Shinobi music is always in my head. I not long ago downloaded the arcade version on the Switch. So I thought, that it was quite cheap, couple of quid. I thought I'll play it. And the music's different to the Master System version. And I thought, this isn't as quite how I remember it. And the sound effects, I prefer the Master System version because that's what I remember.
That's what you're tuned to, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember
exactly the same thing.
Back in the day, sort of thinking that you were walking around like this Shinobi, and every time there was like a little baby on the ground, and it's like you were kicking it. Like a football, like American football kick, just kicking it off the screen. It'd make that little noise. And I remember vividly seeing the like the Andy Warhol Marilyn Monroe imagery
the poster
on the
poster in
back,
the back of
and
it.
yeah, that just playing that, and I do think I definitely prefer the Master System version to playing the arcade one that's on. But yeah,
It's a good
and then
conversion. Very good
yeah,
conversion.
it is really good. And then one of my other, probably my favourite game on it is Batman Returns. But I
Right.
think that's because I remember watching the first Batman movie when I was a kid. So again, superheroes and sort of Batman would have been again on my radar, and I really like the Batman Returns game. Obviously swinging around with his batarangs, throwing all the, killing the enemies and stuff. I thought it was a fantastic game. I don't know whether people remember that one as fondly now as being a great game. I think a lot of people love the NES one. But yeah, I really love Batman Returns. I think that's a really great game. I think it's probably one of those ones that people maybe need to replay and see. But I think it's not as bad as probably what they think.
I think I played it a few months ago on emulation. I was going through some Master System emulation and just played it. And I thought it was all right. I didn't sort of inspire me to go back and play it again, though. But
yeah,
that's maybe just me. I don't know. Just go back to the point you made about Shinobi's music being different from the arcade game. If you ever played Commando, the arcade game, it's an age-old coin-up. The Commodore 64 version, when that came out, had a remixed theme tune to it, which is brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't now play Commando in its original format without wondering what's happening to the music. Why was the original music so bad when the one they put on the Commodore 64 was absolutely fantastic? It's one of the best pieces of Commodore 64 music ever, and it was a remix of a really dull, horrible dirge that they used on the original game. So see, they do things like that.
Arcade as well for me, because I think pretty much every time I went to sort of like Blackpool or something, they never had the really old classic games in there. For me, arcades were the grabbing machines, the 2p machines. You'd have the little 18+ section where it was all like the fruit machines. But for me in the arcade, it was like the Turtles 4-way cab, the Simpsons. They would be the first things I would be looking out for. And if I could hear that music, I could tell you if there was one in that arcade or not, and I would hunt it down.
You're exactly the same as everybody else. We said this before. Sorry, we said it before. As soon as you walk into an arcade, you don't look, you listen.
Yeah.
Because your ears are tuned to hear. Have they got so and so in here? You don't walk around looking for you can hear it. Oh yes, it's over there somewhere, and you walk off in that direction.
You can find it because he always used to be towards the back. But those sorts of games I love, and even now, obviously, I've got the arcade one-up version of the Turtles 4-way cab, and that's one I sit and play just to unwind. Sometimes, when you don't want to play something big and heavy, you can just pop that on. You don't have to put any money in. It's just
that's a bonus. Yep.
Yeah. But Master System was amazing for me. But I had the one you hate. I had the Master System too.
The top loader.
Yeah, the one that looked a bit like a toaster bread bin.
It's just a horrible looking thing. I just don't know what they were thinking doing something like that. I really don't. I
had no knowledge of the first one, to be honest. I never knew that there was an origin. To me, that was, even though it said Master System 2, I had no knowledge of the first one at all.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the first one isn't exactly, a work of art, but it has its retro charm. But the second one looks like it's a combination of 3 or 4 different ideas stuck together, and none of them are any good. It just doesn't.
It's probably when you think it's like the console comes to the end of its life cycle, and they're thinking, we just need to churn out the rest of the boards that we put inside the console. How can we repackage it as cheaply as possible to get some extra money? That's probably the main thing behind it. But the fact that it had a package game as well, Alex in Miracle World, that was my packing game. And again, I love that. I've got the new one on the Switch, and again, the music.
You probably find they bought a load of these like opening, these things to open the tops of units with. They bought a load of those for some reason. What we're going to use them? Well, we'll just stick them on this machine here. Look, build that bit there. Stick that on top. There we go. We'll clear the warehouse down.
Someone's selling old letterbox lids. Let's try and make it into a console.
Let's try and save some money on it and do it that way. Yeah. You still collect for the Master System now?
Yes. So another person I need to blame is Martin. Get to know, because I had a few Master System games, but only really recently this year I've started watching his channel and his collection, because he's got a fantastic collection. He's very different to me, where he likes his stuff in great condition, which is understandable. People, obviously, if you're going to get something, you're going to collect it, why not have it in the best condition you can? I'm more of a case of, if it's got the box and the box doesn't look like, it's been chewed up by a Rottweiler, and the cartridge is in there, I'm more than happy with it. So I've been buying sort of little bundles here and there, and for me, I love the hunt of going on eBay and trying to find, if somebody says to me this game's worth 50 quid, I'm on eBay trying to find it as cheap as possible. And I've bought a couple of the more expensive games a bit cheaper, for that, two for the price of one, and I love that side of it. It's probably, instead of going, obviously when we've not been able to go to game shops and gaming markets, being able to go on eBay and try and get it a bit cheaper. Like, I constantly have CEX and eBay open, and I'm flicking, going, right, so CEX is my price guide, eBay, can I get it cheaper? That is my challenge, and I don't mind waiting months to get a game as cheap as I can, if I can. I'm not in a rush. But yeah, I think I've probably got about 40 games now, whereas really I only really started collecting in general maybe it was before we moved house this year, so maybe 2 years max. But that's for everything. I literally had no collection of anything. The only thing, it's not really a collection. The only thing I had a lot of was DVD and Blu-rays, but that's because it wasn't a collection. I just never sold them. So, but yeah, so in 2 years I've got to where I am now. It's not a huge gaming collection, but it's more because I'm into the toys as well, and they can be just as pricey as games.
They are. You're absolutely right on that. There's a lot of people collecting Master System stuff at the moment, and I think we said it before.
It's coming to a real revival, which is good, because it's nice to see, and it's nice to watch all those videos on it where you go, oh, I remember that game, because obviously it's not got a huge library, has it? It's quite achievable, which is why I've sort of decided now I would like to go for the full set. I think out of anything, there's two I want. It's the Master System, because it's not horrifically expensive, and there's not many to collect, so a little over the 200 mark. And the Vectrex is the other one, because that's a bit more pricier, but there's not a huge amount, probably less than 20 realistically for like the UK side of it, that I would like to go for, because it's more achievable. I would like to say that I have got a full set in something, and I don't want to do the cop-out way and just get the couple of DSi games that you can get, just to say you've got it, to have that little blue badge of honour.
That's not a proper set anyway. That's art collecting. That's not.
Yeah.
But I agree about the Master. I mean, the reason I buy Master System games, and I thought about this last year, prior to lockdown. So we're talking early 2020. I thought, you know what, I'm probably going to try and pick up a lot of Master System games this year, and I'd started really, really well, and then obviously lockdown happened, and it sort of stopped a little bit. But like you, it is an achievable set.
Yeah,
there aren't that many massively expensive games for it, but I don't think I'll ever get there. But I thought, it's one system that I have that I do like, and I'd like to get as close as possible to a full set. There's no point in chasing Nintendo cardboard. I ain't doing that.
No, it's too pricey.
Mega Drive's a bit tricky. I don't fancy doing that. I don't really want to go and do Dreamcast or anything like that. So I thought Master System's probably the way to go. So I like the cases, and if you find a really good Master System game, condition wise, it's one of the best things you can see. The manual is very nice, the cartridge is clean, the box is crisp, the hang tab on the top is sturdy. It's not
like I say, it's one of those ones. It is a really achievable set. There's nothing horrifically obscure that's going to there might be the odd pricey game, but there's not a lot on there that's going to make you go, oh my god. And like with some of them, like fair play to anyone that gets full sets, but I got when I first started collecting out, I sort of call it shotgun collecting. You just fire a gun into something and you pick up absolutely anything that comes your way. Whereas now there's a lot of the stuff I'm trying to like get rid of to make space now for actually what I would like to collect and sort of refocus. So it's been good for me to sort of focus on the fact that I do want the full set in that. And because like in some of them, like if I went for like PS2 or Xbox 360, I don't want to be spending a lot of money on crappy sports games that I'm never going to play. Whereas I don't mind for Master System because it might be a crappy game, but I've got nostalgia for the console, and that will drag me through buying. And there's not many expensive crap games. Like obviously, like when you saw me at Vintage Gamer, I just bought one of the more expensive ones on the list. Hadn't really gone there expecting to, but it just happened to be it just happened to be there, and I thought, do you know what? When am I going to see it again? And obviously, he did me a fantastic price, so I thought, let's just go for it now while I can. I tend to sort of try and go because usually I use CEX to get the big hitters. I sort of think get them out of the way, and then finish on the cheaper stuff later. You know, if you're going to go for it now before they go up in price. Yeah,
I'll do
I like to do it before it goes up. You know, before it becomes that stupid price.
You mentioned sort of like cheap sports. I mean, there are a lot of sports titles for the Master System. There's all the great, great football. I tell you something, to find those in half decent condition is a hard task indeed. You know, when you think about it, there's quite a few of those games, and every time I see them, I thought, oh great, and then you open, there's no manual there, or the box is knackered, or it's in poor shape, or the label's ripped. And you think, how hard is it to find a copy of great football? For me, it
tends to be sort of eBay bundles or going into like the gaming shops because they never always have them highly valued. But they tend to be, because it's in an independent shop, they don't tend to put out something if it's in really crappy condition. They would probably either shift it on with something else or stick it on their eBay page to get rid of it, just to get the money back. But they tend to have half decent stuff there. So I've got a few sort of sports games and the odd racing game already, and I had got a few bits off a bundle with David Tyler, Game Hunter, because he worked out that he doesn't live very far from me, so we have met up in town.
Cool.
Done a bit of a trade for stuff, which I won't spoil because he's not put it in the video yet, I don't think. But I tend to try and get the sports ones in bundles because people sometimes people do it on eBay. They'll go, you know what? There obviously is people out there that collect full sets. They are going to need these games. So let's cluster all the football games together, or this game together, or whatever, and then sell them as a bundle because they've got more chance of selling a bundle of FIFAs or whatever as opposed to just selling one for 99p. Someone might buy the full set for that system because they're going to need it eventually. So
that's right. That's why when I started buying them, I bought all those games to start with because those are the ones that people are going to forget about, just throw out, And if you're going to need a full set or something, or you end up going down that route, or you want to collect as many games as you possibly can, you may need that copy of FIFA 08 on the Wii.
Yeah, that's the point.
Probably not, but if you're going to do something, I'm going to say the Wii because my Wii collection and what have you. But any system, you're going to, if you're going for a full set, you're going to need to buy those games. You might think there's loads of them now, but at some point in the future, sooner or later, CX is going to realise we can be able to sell this lot. We'll just strip the cases, chuck the games away, and keep the cases for spares and donors, like most people do anyway. That's what that's what they buy. But you buy a bundle of FIFAs, you buy them for 2 games. The rest of them you got donor case, haven't you? And you just chuck the game away.
I mean, like with your Master System collection, though, you would probably eventually get to the point where it was you've got so many games that you may as well go for the full set. How many have you got? Over 70 or something you've got, is it? Or?
I think, because I picked a few which I haven't put on eBay. I haven't put on eBay, on YouTube yet. I picked 3 up last weekend. So I'm probably up to about somewhere between, I'd say, 70 and 85, something like that. That's been selective as well, Lynn. That's not going after specific titles. It's finding, whereas I think you're a little bit more. I think you're less like me. I want to, if I'm going to go for something a decent set, I want something that's got good condition case. I want if they've got the manual, or the manuals especially. I want to have a nice set, or as many as I possibly can get that are all in about as close as good condition as I can get with everything being there.
Mine's more like ADHD collecting. I just collect any old shit, anything that comes in my eye line.
I think because I've gone down that route now. If I've perhaps been a little bit less anal about it, but I thought, if I'm going to collect a system and get as many as I possibly can, I want them all to be in good condition, so I can say, that's a really good thing.
I sort of
a lot of stuff now.
I sort of thought when I get towards the end or at the end of getting this full set, I mean, I'd imagine it'd take me a couple of years, but I thought when I do, then I can then go back and look at upgrading or swapping out condition, but at least I know I've got that set. I sort of thought I'd do it that way in my head. Well, that's probably how I justify it in my head, because I'm a bit tight. I don't want to be, if I can get the same game cheaper just because the case isn't in as good a condition, or maybe it's not got a manual, I find it really hard to fork out that extra money, to do it.
I know what you mean. People think I've changed because I spend a lot more than I used to, but I have changed a little bit, I suppose, really. But I'm like, I don't want to spend more than I'd want to. It's got to be a good price on something, and like any advice you give to anybody doing this, you don't want to pay over the odds for something. You want to get the best price you possibly can, but then again, sometimes you're never quite sure whether it's a good deal or not. You think, well, if it's there, it's like you said with Buggy Run. You're there now. Yeah. Am I ever like to see this game ever again?
Well, that's because with that one, I knew the price, because my wish list on the CEX app is absolutely horrific. And I because I'm on there daily, I know the prices roughly of what the big hitters are, because I think if I ever see that out and about, or what I tend to do is I try and train my brain into learning what are the most expensive games, to then look on eBay in bundles where someone's just stuck all these games together. They don't necessarily know what they are, but I can pick out what that spine is or what the game is and go, oh my god, that's like a £200 game or whatever, but it's in a bundle that's £20. That's what I like to do. I do it a lot with it. I recently bought a massive PS2 bundle where I think I got probably 50, 60 games, maybe more. And what purely where in the eBay listing, and people won't be able to see my hands doing this, but it was literally all the spines. That's all you saw was the spines. I read through every single spine. I'd say 199 times out of 200, it's full of shit and it's FIFA. This one listing had Gregory Horror Show in, which I know is a £60 game, and the listing, I bought the whole bundle for about £67, something like that. So that one game paid for the rest of the stuff, because I also do a bit of I'm like one of them dirty resellers online. I do buy to sell in order to fund what I want, because money doesn't grow on trees, you know what I mean? So I do what I can. Right. I don't mind admitting I'm a dirty reseller for stuff. I mean, I don't go out and buy stuff purely to resell, like buy 1 million copies of something that I know is worth it. But if I can buy a big bundle and split it down and sell it on to make more, then that's what
if the opportunity presents itself, then that's fair enough. I mean, I got my copy of the Gregory Horror Show came from a car boot for a couple of quid years ago.
Yeah.
And I knew it was about 30 quid a few years, but I didn't realise until a month or 6 weeks or so ago, I checked the price. Oh, bloody hell, 60 quid. There we go.
Yeah.
So, and again, I never even heard of it before. I just like looking at the cover, and this was going back years. It wasn't recently. This was going back years. I bought it for a couple of quid, and I thought, I like the look of that. I'll just buy it. And I remember Claire said to me, "We bought that for us." I don't know, it just looks different.
Yeah, but it's one of those, isn't it, where the cover, you wouldn't think it's an expensive game. So that's where you're hoping that you've got some family thinking, I'll just sell this on, it's only worth 50p or whatever. But that that's what I love about it, yeah. Yeah, I do love that hunt. But because obviously I work in retail, I never have the Saturday off, really, unless I'm on holiday. So I get 6
Of
Saturdays
course,
off a
yes,
year if I'm lucky. So I didn't get to go to car boots. There's not
that's a
many
problem,
local
isn't
ones
it?
to me anymore. So yeah.
Well, a lot of Master System stuff there. So again, I love that system. I'm happy to sit here and talk about Master System all day, but we have to move on. So after the Master System, before your last system, before we get to your first games of choice, the Desert Island.
So it was an upgrade
Mm,
from the Game Boy to the Game Boy Color. Now
right.
this was purely because at the time, me and my best friend both had the original Game Boy, and I would go around his house and we would sit and play Pokemon all day, every day after school.
Mm.
He had Red, I had Pokemon Blue, and then his birthday was the month before mine, and he got a Game Boy Color for his birthday, and the green monster came out of jealousy. So I was like, please, please, please get me. So yeah, I ended up with the. I remember having the teal sort of coloured Game Boy Color.
The
I
green
think
one,
with it,
yes.
yeah, and I think I'd asked. I mean, it's not a Game Boy Color game, but I'd asked for Pokemon Yellow with it,
Mm.
purely because obviously I think at the time I'd probably seen in a magazine or something that the fact that you could have Pikachu out following you, which was different to the other games. Um, but yeah, the Game Boy Color, that was another fantastic, because the amount of games that came out for that system, it was everything, everything you could think of. There was a
Mm.
Game Boy Color game for it. Every cartoon. Um, again, they were always cheap at car boots as well. I remember getting the little
That's
Simpsons. I
right.
think it's the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, was it? I think. Remember playing that. It was so much fun just getting those little quirky games. You think, oh, you know what? I'll give it a go. It's only like a
Mm.
couple of quid for a loose cartridge. But I mean, really, when it boils down to it, the Game Boy Color was a Pokemon machine for me, because obviously you could play the older ones on there, and it would give it more of a colour, the hue to it. So obviously, red would have a red
Yeah.
tinge, blue would have a blue, yellow had the yellow. But the next level of the Pokemon games all came with colour, and it was like, wow, like going from watching it's like the Wizard of Oz, watching the first bit
Yeah.
and then suddenly colour,
Technicolor.
and you go,
Bang.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you go, wow. So like the main one I've got written down is Pokemon Crystal. I mean, I do like the other ones. I recently, not too recently, bought Pokemon Silver boxed.
Mm.
Was that again? I've had all the Pokemon games as I've grown up. Got rid of them to get the next one or whatever, because you don't think about collecting them. Now I wish I kept them, because Jesus Christ, lockdown! It's
Some of the prices. Oh,
some of
some
them
of the
are
games. Yeah.
ridiculous, but for what they are. But
Yeah.
it's one of them things where, because Pokemon has a lot of memories. Again, it all stems around my dad. So like for me, I lost my dad when I was a teenager. So anything
Mm.
that I've got that reminds me of him and any memory with him, I hold on to.
No, it's a
So
good thing.
for me, Pokemon, I want to. I'm really envious of Corbana, Jim, his
Oh,
little
Jim, yes,
shelving
yes.
unit behind him with all of his Pokemon games. That's what I want, basically. So I blame all you guys. Every time I watch something, I'm like, I want that. So that's another one of my goals. Another one
Mm.
of the many million shopping lists is now getting
Mm.
back the Pokemon games. But
Yeah.
again, it's not the best time to do it. But
No,
it's
it's
one of
not.
those ones.
I mean, I picked up Game Boy Colors at car boots, and I remember I picked up the Super Mario Deluxe cart,
Yeah,
and I was just stunned to see that was Super Mario Brothers from the NES on
yeah.
a Game Boy Color cart. I was like, wow, this is brilliant. Yeah, absolutely
I remember
fantastic. If you
Croc
go,
as well, because I remember playing that,
yeah,
and to see Croc on there, it was because obviously they did venture out more into the 3D sort of side of things on the Game Boy Color. It wasn't
mm,
amazing, but with the color aspect as well and what they were trying to push with it, I think that's
mm,
another great system. Like the no, I don't. I think listening to, because obviously I listen to a lot of these Desert Island games. You get odd little talks about handhelds, but for me as a kid, probably handheld was king. out of everything. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my Master System and that, but that to have a Game Boy or something where I could sit downstairs and play it or take it on holiday, it probably ruled the roost. The any handheld really,
You see,
what you could
when
do.
I grew up with that era, and I would have been when the Game Boy came out at 14, so working probably 14 to 20. I mean, I grew up with a lot of people who had different systems, like you mentioned, Master System, Mega
Yeah,
Drive, Super Nintendo, etc. Even home, the end of the micros and whatever. But very few people I knew had Game Boys or
yeah,
Game Gears or an Atari Lynx. That's very rare as anything. But very few people I knew had things like my sister had a Game Boy. She never played on it.
yeah,
Complete waste of time her having one. But they were never around when I was younger. I mean, we were aware of them, but most people
yeah.
were quite happy playing on the consoles.
I think for me it was mainly my friends at school. I don't ever remember. You know when you sort of hear about people talking about the Sega Nintendo war, I knew
Mm.
absolutely nothing about that because people didn't really talk about it, especially when I was at primary school. Um, it was just because even at primary school, it would have been. I remember the same friend who got the Game Boy Color when he got the PS1. Again, I don't remember anyone going, "Oh my God, Sony are making a console." It was just something that appeared
Yeah,
in his
yeah,
room one day, and we never had that really. And especially like with me, I didn't have my brothers are a lot older than me, so my oldest brother's 20 years older than me, and the next brother is 18 years older. So they'd pretty
right.
much left the house when I was there. So it's like having brothers, but growing up as an only child. It's that sort of weird
Yeah, I get
blend.
you.
I
I
didn't
get
get
you.
any of their hand me downs because they would have left school, got jobs. They wouldn't have really
Mm.
been bothered by gaming. So I didn't really have any hand me downs of anything. But yeah, most of my friends always had some console or another. Like my two friends at primary school. One was this lad who had the Game Boys and eventually got the PS1. My other friend,
Mm.
her dad used to have the older console, so um, I remember him having the CD32, which is where I get the love for it from,
Oh yes, yeah, yeah,
because I
yeah, yeah.
remember playing that and having to me it wasn't like a weird console or something obscure that had the weird controller that not many people like. I just remember that being a really great console because obviously I'd never played an Amiga PC or anything, so I didn't have any attachment to the games. But playing it on there with the CD, like one of my favourite games, I know full well you hate, but Zool 1 and 2.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that because of the colours, and it's probably the right age for me because obviously I would primary school. Oh, you start at 5. I probably would have been 6, 7 playing on
Mm.
that. James Pond games and Cannon Fodder.
Yeah,
Alfred Chicken is another obsession of mine. I
yeah.
love Alfred Chicken.
I like a lot of
Um,
people don't. I like Alfred Chicken.
even the tune that just goes on and on and on.
Yeah,
I love that tune.
it's
Like
great that.
I've got one of them weird brains that focuses on stuff like that. Like we don't even have any ticking clocks in the house because I would seriously I would struggle to sleep if there was a ticking clock anywhere because my
Mm.
brain all I would hear was tick, tick,
Yeah.
tick, and I'd struggle. So I've got one of those weird ones. So anything like that with a tune, it's worse now if we see a stupid TV advert. My wife just looks at me when something comes on because she knows I'm going to do something weird and copy the song, or I'll keep singing it or something. I don't know what it is. Strange, but yeah, CD32 as well. That was a fantastic console. That one.
Again, something I never knew anybody had one. I never played. I haven't played. I never even held a controller for it or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So listen to your old ones. No one
bizarre.
ever really speaks about. But this is purely because it was her dad's. So he I
Mm.
don't know. I don't really know why he had it. It was sort of tucked away in their spare room, as it were. Really, he just used to every so often go, "Oh, can we go and play on the games console?" Then he'd connect it to the TV and we play because most of the time we would be out and about playing. Or I mean, for him, honestly, you very rarely saw her dad because he used to constantly. He's one of them ones that was constantly in his. It was sort of a garage, but not. because it was a terraced house. It sort of had this weird archway that was covered over, but it was a bit like a garage space. He used to just fix bikes all day. And I remember visually they had a motorbike sidecar, and he would let us go round their garden. They'd have like I think it was like their washing line, the ones that come out the ground that open up. He would have that in the middle of his garden, and we would be flying round there. He'd be riding the bike while we were sat in the sidecar, like almost sliding off. And then we'd go and play on the CD32. So it's, but that was a great like Amiga games. Now I remember they're fantastic games for what they are.
Yes, they are. Yeah, I grew up with that. So yeah, system I know an awful lot about. Love that system. Really, really, it was great. And some of the games on there, fantastic. And when I get my stuff back out of storage, I should be hooking it up as soon as possible. And I need to test my Amiga to see if it still works. That's the other thing. I've got
Which one have you got? The 500.
I've got the 500 and I've got 1200 as well.
Okay, yeah.
So, but I haven't played either of them in ages. So I'd be interested to see if they still work or not.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, I'd not played my CD32 for about a month, and I went to play it the other day, and it's decided to stop reading discs. They're not even spinning.
Oh no!
So I'm going to attempt to get it fixed. I've been speaking to Pete Armour. He said he's got a friend that hopefully will be able to sort it out for me in the new year.
Pete knows anybody.
That's why I thought I'd ask him. I thought you must know somebody Amiga based that would do something with it.
He is in the nicest way possible the YouTube Swiss Army knife, because he's got a solution for everything.
Yeah,
get him with a problem.
He's got something, hasn't he?
That's it. And he's been on here before. That lovely guy, Pete, and I'm looking forward to meeting him one day as well. Okay, let's move from your console. So let's move on to some of your games now, because this is why we put you on the desert island, to take some games of your choice with you. And as I said right at the very, very start, this is a fascinating list, and there's some games on here that I know so little about. So I'm going to be listening with everybody else as to why you're taking these with you, and obviously being educated at the same time. So, what's the first game on your list?
So, in the order I sent you, is it you want me to do?
If you could do that would be great. Can you remember?
I thought a bit. Yeah, I've got it saved. I thought I'd be a bit of a dick and go, E.T. on the Atari or Superman 64, just to try and shit you up.
Yeah, that would have really thrown me. That would have done. Yeah. Someone will do that at some point.
So this is my and really go into detail on it, and you'd be like, "Where's he getting this from?" So
yeah.
First one on my list.
Yeah.
It's for the GameCube, and it's Beautiful Joe.
Right. So I've heard of it. That's all I know.
So it's a Capcom game. So I remember when I got my GameCube, it was actually off a friend at secondary school. He was sort of basically, we used to walk out of the school together when he used to walk, because I used to live a bit further away from my secondary school. So my dad always used to pick me up. And basically, walking in, he was like, "Oh, I'm thinking of selling this console, the GameCube." He said, "Do you want it?" So I went, "Yeah, all right." So basically, I picked it up from him one day. And I've had, I had all the typical games for it. Luckily for me, as a kid, I grew up about a 5-minute walk away from Blockbusters in Derby. So we always used to go there for games, movies, or whatever. So I remember getting this game, and it just blew my mind. I think it looks so different. Like I've recently just bought, show you on there. That's the Japanese one.
Oh yes, yeah. Oh yeah, okay. So that's a good cover.
You'll probably recognise the character because he's on. I think you might have the Wii fighting game that's got him in it. You know, the one that's got the G-Force and Battle of the Planet characters in.
Yeah, Tatsunoko versus Capcom.
Yeah, that's it. I was trying to think what the name was.
Yeah.
So he's on that.
Okay.
And yeah, it was just because when you put it in, it's that sort of cell shaded. It has the cutscenes of you basically like this young lad. Your girlfriend gets taken off you, and that's the main story. You're trying to get her back, and it's like cell shaded, but then movie based as well. So as you can probably see on the back, obviously only for you and not the listeners, but you can see like it looks like a bit like a film reel.
It does, yes, yeah.
So it would be like the levels would be on different bits. So the first one's like you're in like this. You'd be fighting all these little characters, And the main gimmick with this is you become a superhero, as if like you're a normal guy that becomes a superhero like you would in the movies. And at the end of your levels, you attain a new ability. So, like, I think the first ability is the ability to slow down time. You only get it for a few seconds, and you have to build it up, and eventually you like upgrade it to get it for longer. But you slow down time, where you would be moving semi-normally. Your enemies would be uber slow, but when you hit them, it hits them harder because you're hitting them at normal speed for you, but slower. Then you get one where it would seem as if you were going really big on the screen, but it wouldn't be. It would be like the camera had zoomed in on your character. So instead of you now only filling a tiny portion of the screen, you could do like a flying circle kick, and you would cover the entire screen of enemies. So if you had a lot of enemies around you, you would zoom in on the character to use this ability and kick everyone all at once, and then zoom out.
Okay. Wow.
There's loads of different abilities on it, but it was for me, it was all about the look. It was just so different. And that's what I loved about it. It was nothing I'd ever seen before. Sort of a bit of a platformer beat 'em up style game, and I just fell in love with it. And then the name of it as well. Funnily enough, that was Beautiful Joe is my first ever email address, and it's still my PayPal address. That is my PayPal name. Yeah, because that is my first email. And yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, because there was an obsession around that time with cell shaded graphics being used in games.
Yeah,
and I think they looked all right. I mean, anybody who played Wind Waker, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, there's a lot of controversy at the time about how different that looked compared to the other games in the series, and people didn't like it. But I think it looks absolutely beautiful.
Oh yeah, I love that. I mean, I've never had any experience beforehand of any Zelda game, if I was honest. But I remember asking my brother, one of my brothers, to get me that for I think it was my birthday or Christmas. The Wind Waker with the extra disc, the one that gives you Ocarina and Majora's. And I loved it. And that's the sort of graphics that don't age.
That's right.
Really,
that's right.
It's not something you go, oh, this is a polygonal sort of original Tomb Raider. This is really old now. Doesn't matter when you play this game, it's still going to look as good as when it did back in the day.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree that's just a very, very good point about that.
But yeah, it's a fantastic game. I mean, honestly, you should give it a go. If you haven't got a GameCube, get it on the PS2's got it as well. But it's a fantastic game. So, funnily enough, I never played the second one. Because there's a second one, and I think there's one called Rumble as well. But it was the first one for me that really got it. Yeah.
I always say that there's bound to be at some point a game which someone's going to talk about. I'm going to sit there and think, I quite like the sound of that. So, I should add that to my recommended games from Desert Island.
Your new shopping list.
That's it, yeah. Like your shopping list will be eventually, I'm pretty sure.
Dentures, Beautiful Joe.
Yeah. So I put people's names in it so I know to blame afterwards. It's your fault. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So your next game, you've mentioned this one already. And I believe it was Gernaldinho. I'm pretty sure it was. I think this is when he did. Pretty sure.
Because I think he's played it on because I'm pretty sure he's had it downloaded on the Xbox 360 before they removed it from the store, and I'm pretty sure I've watched him play it. And that was the Simpsons arcade. Now, like I say, when I was a kid, it was the Simpsons and the Turtles were the two I went for, because for me they stood out more than anything else. Because most the sort of age I was when I went into the arcade, it was mainly either the big shooting games. So you've got like your Time Crisis, Ghost Squad, stuff like that, or it was the traditional arcade ones with the coin machines or the grabbers, stuff like that. But these two, I picked Simpsons over the Turtles because at the time I was a massive Simpsons fan, and I think it's got a bit more to it I think it's more the humour side of it that I gravitate towards. Like, obviously, at the minute, I've obviously got the Turtles arcade one up, and they have announced the Simpsons one, which is probably going to enter here at some point if it ever comes to the
Oh,
UK.
okay, yeah.
Because I get the emails through, and when I saw that, I was like, oh my god, wallet just opens up and all the money flies out. But this game, the fact that you could play as the four characters and the four main ones anyway. Do all the funny little beat ups. You had all these animations. You fight all the little agents, and then the little mini games in between. You'd have to like smack the buttons to blow up the balloon, and it would be one of them ones that if I would probably not buy anything throughout the day from like a toy shop or anything, because I knew I would want to save my money to put in that game at the arcade. Because I think at the time it was probably, I can't remember it being mega cheap. It would have been like £1 a go, and if you're not very good, it doesn't last very long, So I would probably sink a fiver in there quite easily. Yeah, so that'd be one of the ones I would gravitate towards. You'd hear the Simpsons theme tune, you'd see that iconic sort of bluey greeny tinge to it, and I remember the ones I was used to playing was the one that it was like a stand up 4-player arcade, but it did used to have the additional seat with it as well. So like the same colour seat with, I think it had like a red like bar seat on it. Yeah, I would spend absolutely hours. Probably again with my dad in tow. He was probably, if he wasn't there, he would have been in a local grabbing machine, because back then grabbing machines used to. For me, every holiday we went on, we would come back with at least 2 bin bags full of grabbing machine toys easily. But I don't know if it's because machines were easier then, or maybe he was just really good. But every year he would win so much, so he would probably be on one of those trying to win me the latest fluffy cuddly toy of whatever we was watching while I was sat playing that. And it's just, to me, it's the game I love, but also the memory of being on holiday with them as well. Like I said, like I went back to say, my dad died when I was a teenager, but he had died 6 months after my uncle had died that we used to go on holiday with as well. So for me, it was all that suddenly we went from being 5 of us to 3 of us in 1 year. So again, it was all the memory, and that's probably why I really love it still. Like, it's the sort of game I would go back to purely to get that nostalgic memory.
Yeah, at those times. Really. I completely understand, and again, it's a common theme through this, Liam. I mean, you're not the only person to think that or say that on here about having memories of relatives or parents who aren't with us anymore, but memories of doing things based around games, with them or being around them at the same time. So you're not the first person to think that, and you won't be the last. I wouldn't have thought either. There'll be loads of people out there sit there going, yeah, I agree. I can relate.
But that's what it's all about to me. It's all about the nostalgia. That's why now I'm trying to cull my collection of anything that's not nostalgic, because really I'm thinking, well, what's the point? I want it to, it's more of a, yes, it's like a man cave, game room, whatever. But the fact that I collect the toys as well, that's all stuff with memories. I probably collect stuff that other people don't really think about, but I collect it because it's relevant to me. And that's what I like. That's why I like watching people's YouTube and their room tours and seeing how theirs is different to mine and what they're. That's why I love listening to this with people, because you hear about the people's stories.
That's why I like doing it, because I like hearing the stories as well. It's a way of getting, satisfying my curiosity at the same time presenting those stories to a wider audience, as it were. So people will be sitting there going, again, agreeing with me on that. I will be honest with you, I'm not crazy about The Simpsons as arcade. Turtles I can understand, and the X-Men, the 4-player, I can get behind that as well.
X-Men's good as well, yeah.
But for the Simpsons was a cartoon, and this doesn't relate to any sort of cartoon version of Simpsons I much prefer things like Road Rage or Hit and Run, because that's more about the Simpsons I know and love, or even a Simpsons game. I quite like that. But I mean, it's okay. I played it a lot when I was a kid, but I'm not mad crazy about it, I must be honest.
Yeah. See, I think it was Like for me, I much prefer the older Simpsons. We're going to end up talking about cartoons for hours now, but because I like watching your cartoon videos, because again, I don't know, it's because my parents are older or what, but when I talk to my wife about the cartoons I used to watch, mine are much older, like Hanna-Barbera and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, there would have been reruns when I watched them, but I used to love the older stuff. The same with the Simpsons. I love.
Most of them were reruns when I watched them as well. I'm not that old.
I'm just checking. I didn't want to say, but for me, it was I prefer the older Simpsons to the newer.
I
Same with
think
everything,
most
really.
people do. Yeah,
It's like even
I think the Simpsons, for me, the first sort of 9 series is probably about as far as I would go, and that will take you probably to the end of the 90s to start of the new millennium, and that's when it started to go a bit weird. Do
you know what it reminds me of?
Really
It reminds me of very similar to how I feel with South Park. So when I was at school, I remember South Park coming out, and it was a big thing because of how it was, and obviously it being not an adult cartoon, but I think I must have been. I'm trying to think when South Park came out. I was definitely at secondary school for sure. I think
it was South Park. The film was, I think, 97, 98. So I'm guessing it was probably a couple of years before that. I think we're probably talking maybe 95, 96, something like that.
No, maybe I was at primary school then. I definitely remember watching it from the get-go. And I very, very much prefer, like for me, South Park got less interesting after series 3. I love the older ones and the humour. Like for me, my favourite episode is the first one. It's kooky enough and it suits my sense of humour. For me, and like with The Simpsons, my term is it goes a bit too American. So when South Park starts making jokes out of American people that I don't know, or stuff like that, I lose interest. The same way, I think The Simpsons, it had a bit like the American Dad sort of, and what's the other one? I'm trying to think what it is now. What's
Family Guy.
Family Guy. That's it. When it goes a bit too much, trying to be a bit daft and stuff like that, that's when I lost interest because it stopped being funny. My humour's quite. It's a bit weird because I love old comedies, like Steptoe and Son and Porridge, Open All Hours. I love. That's my sort of era. But then it's mixed in with the weirder. I wouldn't say new, but like the Mighty Boosh and Ross Noble, the weirder side of things. So it's just a bit weird.
More surreal.
Yeah, that's me. Plus a little bit of dark comedy mixed in because I'm quite dark. My sense of humour is it's not a little bit dark; it's very dark. But that's what I like. It's a random mix of everything. So, but when it goes a bit too American, I generally lose interest. But for me, I think the game captured that old. It had bits of humour in it, and they used to have bits where you'd have the power ups where I think you used to. I don't know. I can't remember whether you changed into Bart. Bartman, the character he used to dress up in.
Yeah, I think
whether it's like a bit of a power up. So it had that.
Right.
It was about the time I used to watch it and used to love watching The Simpsons after school. So that's probably why it grabbed me. Like I did love the Turtles, but I think that was when I was younger. So I used to play it because to me they were very similar games, but probably from the interest point of view, the age I was playing them, I was probably more into The Simpsons at the time than I was the Turtles. So that's why I think I picked it because I wanted something arcadey on there because it is a big part of when I was younger, but I don't have the same memories around arcades like some do where they've played all the classic games and stuff. I wish it was, but it's I'm slightly younger. Not to rub it in.
We're all different, man. It's all the way around, you know. I mean, I was lucky to grow up playing all the classics in the arcade. And I think it's a shame that a lot of people didn't get to do that, but they've experienced it later on. But the games that they got at the time were right at that end of that period. You still had some good games coming out. The arcade was still relevant as such. So, I tell you what we do. I mean, we had a chat before how we're going to do this before we started. But as we're in the arcade at the moment, do you want to do your third game while we're talking about it? Because It's
I
sort
can
of
do, yeah.
arcade
So
related. Yeah.
well, yeah, it's because obviously it's an arcade game, but my memory of it is on the Switch. So I first heard about this game. It's Time Pilot, and it's from Alex Nintendo Arcade. I think he'd either done a video on him just getting it in, either the game or the board, and he was doing gameplay on it. And I thought that looks really fun. It's one of them. It reminded me a lot of like the Vectrex style sort of asteroidy in a way, but then it's something in me probably triggered the old Atari simplistic gameplay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I downloaded the arcade version on the Switch, and I remember for quite a time I've been playing that as my game in bed to help me go to sleep.
Yeah.
So we would watch something on TV, miss it as go to sleep, and then I'd put the Switch on and try and beat my score on Time Pilot, which is incredibly frustrating because it's one of them ones like if you play Asteroids, you can have a bit of skill, but sometimes things don't go your way, and
That's right. Yeah.
because it's I mean, have you seen the game and know the rough concept of it, or
I've seen it because it's a big favourite amongst the TMB. I
yeah,
think certainly Pete and Nathan, I think Eddie as well. They've spoken about Time Pilot
yeah,
before, so I'm familiar with it. I don't think I've actually played it much, if at all.
yeah.
I know of it, but that's probably as far as
So
I do really.
you'll have to get it on the Switch. I think it's literally a couple of pounds for the. I do go
That's
on there and
yeah.
look at all the old K games. They're so cheap on there, but yeah, it's just really it's like you've got the sort of asteroidy style movement, sort of, but you're effectively on different time zones fighting different style enemy ships, whether they're like World War planes or futuristic ones, and basically you just try and survive the level, killing as much as you can. You eventually kill like a bit of a mini boss on the level, and once you've done that, you then sort of go to the next point in time, really, and do it all again. And I think I love that the different aspects to it because I'm a big sci-fi fan, so anything starshipy based or time travel, like Doctor Who and stuff like that, or Star Trek,
Yeah.
that will come up later. And Star Wars is I love it. So any game like that and time, say time travel stuff like that, but just a simple gameplay of trying to beat your score is very addictive to me. It helps back probably to the Atari games or playing Tetris where you have to try and beat the amount of lines in the score you can get. So it's all about that. It's one of them. There'll be a few games where it's like this. It's just that one more go. I'll just give it one more go. See if I can beat my score. And 4 hours later, and you've not beat your score, and you're just a bit more pissed off. But you've had fun because it's simplistic gameplay that you just really enjoy. Like games don't have to be these AAA amazing graphics. It's just simple games that play well.
I can completely relate to that because when I was playing Pac-Man Championship on the PlayStation 3, and I sit on my high scores years ago, and I thought, I'll just put them on and try and beat them again. And it's exactly that. It's like, you make one slight mistake. Oh, that's it. It's gone. Never gonna have to get through this now to get to the end, and then start again and try and beat my score. And yeah, it's very competitive. And you keep one eye on the score, one you're there, one eye looking up at the score, one eye on what's going on the screen. Am I getting close? How long have I got left? Yeah, it's I can completely agree with that.
I think the worst one I used to have when I was a kid was going back to the Game Boy was Bomb Jack. Playing that to get all the bombs in the right order to get the highest score. Oh my god, absolute hours on that game.
That's another TMB favourite, Bomb Jack. Another TMB
Bomb
favourite.
Jack.
Yeah. Sean. I think Sean and Eddie on that one as well.
But yeah, that was purely because I didn't know that was an arcade game. But playing that on the Game Boy, I absolutely love that game.
There's some ropey conversions, Bomb Jack, back in the day. I think,
some suspicious ones.
Some very, very strange and not great. Commodore 64 one was pretty bad. The 16-bit ones were terrible as well. The Amiga one was pretty awful. It's a shame because a lot of people like that arcade game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Time Pilot. Yeah, do you know? I'm pretty sure I've got a version of that in a different name on on the micro somewhere, possibly the 64. It's called Time something, but it looks suspiciously like Time Pilot, but it's not.
Yeah, like they didn't get the
It
license or
may
something.
yeah, it's probably called Time Captain or something stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
Time Commander. Yeah, it's something like that. But I'm sure I've seen it knocking around somewhere. But yeah, I mean, a couple of quid on the Switch. I mean, yeah, that sounds to me like that might be a goer as well.
The Switch is a fantastic console for arcade games. I've not long just downloaded the. I'm trying to think now. Is it the either the Capcom or the Namco? There's one on there where you basically play loads of arcade games. You've got different selections like beat 'em ups and shooters. You've got the like Ghouls and Ghosts or Ghosts and Goblins, whichever one it is. So is that Capcom?
That'll be Capcom then. Capcom.
Yeah. It'd be them then. So I think there is a physical version of what I downloaded, but yeah, sure. If you search on there, they've got tons of games on there. And again, they're so cheap, but it's one of them games that you just keep on playing because it's a great pick up and play. You don't have to have played it for 4 hours previous. You can just get into it. Might be a bit rusty,
I'm
but
sure usually the case. I'll put that down to. I use that as an excuse. I think you're thinking of the Capcom Classics collection, which came out on PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. I think.
No, there is a physical version on the Switch as well because I think there's.
Oh, sorry.
I think there's I'm pretty sure there's a Capcom. I don't know whether it came out in the UK, but there's a Capcom beat 'em up collection, which I know it came out in Japan because I've seen the physical version that's on the I think it's on the Play Asia site because obviously the Switch is region free. But this is just the digital version I downloaded purely because it had all the games on there as well. It was like a virtual. I think it's called like it might be called Capcom Virtual Arcade.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, you basically you can go. You buy. I think it's like Pack 1 has got some like it's 1945. Is that a
1942, 1943.
Yeah,
those are the yeah.
So it's got those on there. You've got like the shooter section. You've got beat 'em ups on there. You've got like your Ghouls and Goblins or Goblins and Ghosts, whichever one it is, on there as well. So it's got a real good mix of. I think it's got. I want to say it's got Commando, but it's going to be showing my crap gaming knowledge here. This is why I'll never be on the quiz. Is Commando a Capcom or something similar?
It may be,
but something similar to that sort of Commando style. That's on there as well. So you've got a real. You've got a real. Well, to be honest, at the start, I used to be half decent. I used to get 16 plus every week. The last few weeks, I've been getting like 10, 11. The music round kills me because unless I really know I don't focus on the music all the times in some of the games, and then some of them I've not played. So if it's a C64 or a Spectrum, I've got no hope. I've never played them, barring seeing the tapes on you guys playing them. No idea. So it's one of them ones. If you know it, you know it, but I don't. So
yes,
but
it's a hard round, that one. It's a hard round. That's a Retro Bates retro gamer quiz. If people don't know what we're talking about, it's runs every couple of weeks on his channel, and it's good fun to watch. But it will test your brain to see how how good you are.
I love sitting there, cup of coffee, a notepad, and I'll play along every week. See what I get.
So do I.
And I also post my result in the comments every week, and I'll be like, "Oh my god, I've got this!" So yeah. I'm sure I was born in a long time. That's the problem. Like an old man in a young ginger body. But
it's a good way.
Maybe I might be the next Doctor Who. You never know. Maybe that's what it is. I just haven't realised I've regenerated into Mick Hucknall's love child. But that might be what it is. You never know. We all look the same as gingers.
With all due respect, you're not quite as pretty as Jodie Whittaker.
What? Quick, cancel the stream. You know what? But, this is really the only Doctor Who series I've not watched. every other one I've religiously recorded. I don't know whether it was just because of the time it came on with moving house and whatever. I've not watched that. I watched the first episode where it became her. I've not watched it since. I don't know
She's
why.
good.
I know the current one's on, isn't it? Is it Flux or whatever it's called?
Yeah, started 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Sort of semi-catched some bits of that episode while we've been flicking on the TV, but I'm guessing is that like a special based on similar to like what the olden ones were, where they used to have a special that would run for a few episodes? Or
It's sorry, folks. We're going on a Doctor Who tangent. I do apologise, but we're going to have to go on a Doctor Who tangent. I believe it's like a mini series of like 6 stories, but with a theme running through it. So there's one continual story arc with individual episodes. Well, they're not individual episodes; they're all tied together as to what's going on. And you know, to be fair, you know, she's been very, very good. But the problem is,
I do need to watch it.
Has been a lot of the writing, and it wasn't very good, and it's been a bit crap for quite some time, to be honest with you. And it's picked up a little bit. It's still got the same pitfalls it has, but this is her exit story now. So we're going through these 6. Then I think there's 3 specials next year, and then she regenerates, and we get a new Doctor Who at the end of that. So you probably got a little bit of time to push up on your.
It seems a shame that has she only done one series. Then it seems a shame that
one full series in this, yeah.
Because obviously it was all this big hoo-ha about it, the fact that it was being a woman. So I wonder. It seems strange that she's only done the one. Because I never had any issue with that.
No, me neither. Me neither.
It took for me, I got
into it.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. For me, like I never remember watching the original Doctor Who's. It was, for me, Doctor Who came onto my radar when Christopher Eccleston came on the scene. But it made me then, because I remember iPlayer, I'm pretty sure it was iPlayer, put on from the very first episode everything that they still had, because obviously there's a lot of lost episodes in there with Doctor Who, but everything they had pretty much they put on iPlayer, and there was I was one of those. I'm one of them. Well, my wife thinks I'm a weirdo. I think I'm normal, but if we watch something, it has to be. We call it Series 1, Episode 1. She asks me all the time, like, what we're going to watch it from. I'm like, well, what nutter watches Series 3, Episode 6? You watch from the beginning, no matter what it is. You know, even if we're watching, she likes to watch Friends and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, well, watch it Series 1, Episode 1. Oh, you don't. You know, Friends and Dawson's Creek and all that sort of crap.
Oh, God, no.
That's why it takes us forever and a day to watch something on Netflix, because we don't like the same stuff. Very rarely. we spend an hour picking what we want, and then in the end it's just a case of, well, you watch this and then I'll watch something I want to watch, and we'll both sit there watching something, you know. Maybe the odd movie will overlap on, but not really. She loves horror, I don't love horror at all, so it's one of them. But it's Doctor Who tangent. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm just before we finish that tangent. I'm old enough to remember it the first time around, because it was on.
Yeah,
it was probably about 15 years into its first run when I first started watching it, and then I got the excitement. It was you know, when you first found out about it in 2005 when it came back. Me and a guy I was working with, he was a big Doctor Who fan as well, and I was like, "Have you seen this?" He's like, Doctor Who's coming back. I was like, yes, great. This Doctor Who's coming back. It's fantastic. We were so excited about it, and yeah, it was great, and you know, we really did enjoy it. And then after a few years, it sort of started on shit again. So
yeah, I love the Eccleston ones. I think they were the better ones.
He was very good. He was very, very good. I think when they had to relaunch it, he was the right actor to use it. You need a decent named actor in there. And it's a very, very, because you know, Eccleston at that point, you know, very much into sort of heavy dramas, not known for his ability to sort of switch between doing light comedies, Doctor Who, and serious side of it, but also there's a lot in comedy involved in being the Doctor. So he was an inspired choice, really, and I think they picked the right person in David Tennant after that, because although he was reasonably well known, he wasn't super well known, and he made the role his own. And I think sadly after that, it's been a steady slide down. Not Matt Smith's fault. I think he got sided with some really shit stories. And Peter Capaldi.
Yeah, Matt Smith was all right, but I always thought with the Matt Smith that he was trying too much to play on what the You just said his name. What was the one after?
David Tennant.
Yeah.
Capel. No, David Tennant. Yeah.
Yeah, David Tennant, yeah, just completely gone out of my mind. I think he was trying to play too much on his character to be that sort of slightly kooky, a bit different. Because I don't think the Christopher Eccleston one was like that, but I think obviously David Tennant was so popular, and he was a really good Doctor. But when you went to Matt Smith, he was more. It felt a bit the same, but just somebody else doing that job. And I think that's probably the problem. Like you say, the story wasn't always as good as well. But yeah, I did like the bit where they was it just that one, or was it the Tennant one where they brought in River Song? I did like that sort of thing that was going through. You know, the woman that was his wife. I think it was Tennant as well.
I hated that. That was.
Did you know?
I absolutely hated that character.
But I like that.
Absolutely
I like that
ruined it for
interweaving of the fact that she was meeting him at different stages of when, because obviously she knew her later. Because she was meeting a younger version of him. I found that quite interesting, but I don't know, maybe that's just me.
No, definitely just you. It's absolutely ruined it for me. That did. Anyway. Let's come back from our Doctor Who tangent. That's another chat for another time, mate. We can do that one another time. I'll be happy to do that. Right, let's get back. So those are your first 3 games on your Desert Island list. Let's get back to your gaming history. We've got quite a bit to get through, so if we can see if we pick that up again. So we had the Game Boy Color was the last one we spoke about. Then you moved. Yeah. You had a Master System before that. We're back on Sega again.
Yep.
It is the much maligned.
The Sega Saturn. Yeah, the Sega Saturn. So this was because I think at the time I remember it was when my friend had got the PS1. But I think I must have just wanted to stick with Sega at the time. Because it probably had things on there that I knew. And I don't really remember much of the marketing for the PS1, but I think I remember Saturn stuff because I think I remember seeing that the same guy who used to get the Master System games off at the Donny Market at Castle Donington, he used to have Sega Saturn stuff, and you know the slightly bigger boxes. Always looked interesting. Yeah, they are horrific. But I've got a big list of games on there. But for me, like Tomb Raider, obviously it was made for the Saturn, really.
That's right.
I remember playing it on there before my friend had eventually got it on his PS1. And I loved it. I thought for me that was a great system for the games on it. So it had like the ones I've sort of made a note of. I've got that. You've got Nights into Dreams. Which I sort of liked, but I think at the time I don't really know what I was doing. I was just a character floating about. I didn't really get the concept, but I think it must have just been a cheap game that I picked up. Obviously, Tomb Raider, Virtual Fighter. Saying I don't like fighters. Virtual Fighter 1 and 2, and Kids, Virtual Fighter Kids. I loved playing those. Because the Kids one, I loved the fact that it was just like tiny bodies but with massive heads, but the same characters that you really loved. It was such a strange concept, but that's a fantastic fighting game. Croc was a great game on there. Interesting enough, I remember playing that originally on the PS1, but that was at the local hospital. So when I was a kid, between probably like the age of 5 and 18, I had I'd had 6 broken arms. Obviously, not all at the same time. But
how many arms have you got?
Well, you know, talk about Doctor Who. But I was there so often in the children's ward of the local hospital. They used to have a PlayStation hooked up to an old CRTV TV, so you'd have the PlayStation like proper encased as if it was like Fort Knox. And they only ever had 2 games on there, Croc and Crash Bandicoot. So Croc, I love that game. I mean, unfortunately, on the Saturn one that I had at home when I got it for home was very buggy. The amount of times you'd be moving around and then all of a sudden you'd either fall into something or for some reason you'd like go into Croc's head and all you would see is his eyeballs floating about, or it was so glitchy. But I loved that sort of 3D platforming aspect to it. It was just a great game. It was like it wasn't too aggressive or anything. It was just a really fun platforming game, and collecting the gems and stuff like that. I've got Bug, if you remember Bug.
Oh, yeah,
The
remember
sort
Bug,
of
yeah.
funny style, a bit like a platformer, but it was very sort of going to and from the background, and it was like almost as if the character wasn't really 3D, but he was. But you would go to and from the foreground and background to kill your enemies and stuff. Scorcher was another one. So that's a
Don't know that
racing
one.
game. Yeah, so that was a racing game where I think, sort of, you're either on either a hover bike or just a bike, but it's basically got like a green shield around it. So you would basically ride around, you could bang into stuff, but it was very sort of like a dark dystopian. There wasn't really very many light coloured racetracks. They're all dark, dingy backgrounds. But it's one of the
Okay,
games I
yeah.
remember having. Again, it was probably because it was a cheap one that I ended up picking up for myself.
Never heard of that one. Never heard of it.
Trash It was another one I loved.
Again, I don't know that
Now,
one either. This is the
so
education.
I've been trying to get this one on the PlayStation 1 at the minute. From what I vaguely remember, I'm pretty sure it was this one, but in my head it was two little builder guys, and you used to have to. Like part of it was you were just basically just two little builder guys with a hammer, constantly going at it, just destroying stuff, trashing stuff,
I
and that
never
was
heard of it.
part of the.
Never.
You'll have to YouTube it, but it's just a memory I
I'm
have,
going
and
to.
I remember the cover because it just basically just says "trash it" on it. There's no real image. Um, Another one was Clockwork Night 1 and 2.
Yep. Know that one. Yep.
You've obviously got the Pandemonium games there, which were fantastic games as
I know
well.
those. Yep. Yeah.
The Girl and the Jester, Gex. So the original Gex, I can't remember. I think Gex 3D was on the PlayStation 1 and not on the Saturn. I think, but the sort of 2D style Gex was on there. I remember playing that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then probably one of my absolute favourite. It was called Iron Man X Manowar. So it was Iron Man from Marvel, and then a character called Manowar, which I didn't really know about. It was a platformer where you could play as either of the two characters. So you could be Iron Man, and obviously you would add the normal Iron Man powers with his suit and what have you. And I think Manowar I think he is his own individual character, but he looks very similar to a bit like what's the other Iron Man character? The one that's not Iron Man, the grey one with the gun. And very similar
Ironmonger?
to
No.
him, but he is.
Ironmonger? No?
I can't think what his name is. I'll try and see if I can bring up an image of the. But again, that was a great platforming game.
There's a lot of games I've not heard of here. This is very interesting.
But at the time, it was probably purely because it was cheap on this guy's store. So it's not me actively going out to see him. It's probably me picking up the back going, "Oh, Iron Man."
Yeah, whatever you can find for whatever money you got in
I'm
your pocket.
pretty sure. Oh, yeah. So it's Iron Man Exo Manowar in heavy metal, and if I can see that, I don't know if I can. This is going to be really interesting for people at home when I just show you the image.
So he's going on his phone at the moment, so we're just. I was going to show me a photograph of.
So you can see in there, you've got Iron Man, and that's Manowar. So basically, you can play as either of those two characters, on basically like a platforming level, going around destroying. Like I think there were like metallic enemies and stuff like that. That was another great game on there, and it has so many great games. And obviously, you've got the classics like your Panzer Dragoon. That was another fantastic one, and I got the remake version on the Switch as well. That was another. I think because it was obviously my friend had got the PS1. This was my first real sort of 3D system that was mine, and because I'd loved Sega anyway, I just loved it. It has so many great games. I'm sort of in the market at the minute. I sort of got rid of my PAL console, most of the games to AL because I want the Japanese one. So I want it for the faster frame rate, and obviously you can still get the same games, but they'll play slightly different, slightly faster. But you've got all that other market of the newer, the different games that we didn't get, because obviously a lot of people say if you go Saturn, it's Japanese, that's what you want. But I have a lot of nostalgia for these PAL ones. So
yeah, I mean, people love the Saturn, and you can see there again the way you talk about it, you know, how much it meant to you at the time, and there's a lot of games I know I never even heard of. So, I do run it down a little bit. I don't think it's a bad system. I just think it came along.
but like I say, if you've not got that
it was badly
connection
done.
to it, if you've not got that connection to it, you might not like it. Whereas for me, it was just one of them ones. It was mine. It was in my room, my bedroom. So it was the one I've got the memories of. If I'd have had a PlayStation instead at that time, I probably would have just gone for that instead, because they've got very similar games on it. To be honest,
I knew nobody with one at the time. Everybody I knew had PlayStations. That's what I ended up getting. If people had done things differently, I may have gone with a Saturn, but no, I didn't. And, there was a lot of bad press about the Saturn at the time as well, which I think, you know, again, probably a little bit unfair, but it wasn't helped by the fact what went before it didn't help it. And
see, I knew nothing about that really. All their sort of failures of that, because I'd never experienced the Mega Drive or anything like that, or the 32X, or the Mega CD, and even like with the PlayStation. When my friend had got that, he got that before I got the Saturn, I think. We were very sporty back then. So basically, the main game we played on the PS1 was Brian Lara Cricket, which people would be like, "What?" It's not the best game in the world, but because we loved playing cricket, so we would go and watch Derby play cricket, and we would be playing cricket at the side of that pitch, or we both joined the same local football team. Ironically, it's in the same little part of Derby, so Micklova Sports, where I live now. Their Micklova Sports Ground is literally 2-minute walk round the corner. I used to play for them when I was a kid. So it was all football and cricket and games and stuff. So for me, the PlayStation originally was just something to play Brian Lara Cricket on. It wasn't anything else. But the Saturn had so much.
I remember getting dead excited when Brian Lara Cricket came out for the Mega Drive. I bought that as soon as it came out. I was like, "Great, it's fantastic!" It was basically a reskin of the old Graham Gooch game for the Amiga. But then it came out on the PlayStation 1. It was obviously completely different. You got commentary and you got these realistic stadiums, and I bought that as soon as it came out. I thought I've got to have that. Yeah. And even playing the other ones on the PlayStation 2, you know, they were great.
Yeah, anything cricket really. I mean, I love watching it. Me and my wife went to watch the latest, where they're trying to copy the games abroad, the quick games. Yeah, the 100. So we went to Nottingham to watch one of the games, not too long ago, and that was fantastic. When we got married, literally the week after was the Ashes. So our sort of honeymoon, we were on holiday in Wales, and we were watching the Ashes all day. That was we were just relaxing, watching that. We took the dogs down with us, because we stopped where she used to stop as a kid in Wales, literally between, probably from me to where my bathroom is right now, was the beach. So during the day we would take the dogs for a walk, come back in, doss around all day and just watch the cricket, have it on in the background, carry on, and that was it. I love the sport. And Brian Lara, people probably think it's rubbish, but I love that little game.
Yeah, well, that was my sport growing up. I used to play as well, so anything cricket related is easy. I've managed to convince Mrs. Bear a little bit over the years to, when Ben Stokes won the Test match at Headingley a few years back. We sat down and watched that all day. I said this will be a good final day. And we actually sat down and watched that all the way through. She watched the World Cup final from start to finish as well.
It's one of those ones. If you can go and watch a game, like the 100 was really good, because it doesn't overstay its welcome, and you get a bit of the glitz and the glam. Between every shot, there's like really big shootings of fire in the crowd and stuff like that, and you've got the band playing, and it's a bit of something extra. But if you go and watch it, it is more that you can get into, as opposed to sitting there 8 hours watching a Test cricket. And if you're not into it, you're never going to be into it, are you? But this has got something more to it, and obviously with the 100, we used to watch the women's match first, and then the men's.
So
you've got a bit of everything there, really. So Cricket
That's right,
tangent.
yeah. And
Doctor Who.
cricket, yeah, it's good, this, isn't it?
Well,
We got
welcome
more
to
in
the
common than I
Tangent
thought.
Podcast.
That's it. We got more in common than I thought we would have. Sometimes we got the gaming thing at the fulcrum of it, but a lot of people we talk to have the same interest. But we talk cartoons, we talk Doctor, and we talk cricket now. This is rather good. This bodes really well. This does. I think when Mrs. Bear listens to this on Saturday morning, she'll be going, "You got a friend for life there." You're so even your taste in comedy. You mentioned Steptoe and Open All Hours and things like that.
Yeah.
Again, that's my sort of thing. So
it probably stems from,
anyway.
I say that, because my mum was older, so even music, we used to listen to 50s and 60s mainly, like when other people were probably going to the cinema, we went to go and see The Searchers or you remember Helen Shapiro? And
Helen Shapiro, yeah, but I don't remember. I've heard of her. Yeah.
I've met her. You know what I mean? I've met her and had a tape cassette signed by her. So but that is
Yeah.
my music. And the older stuff like that, the Beatles and my dad was a big Elvis fan. Roger Whittaker. That is my
Roger Whittaker. Yeah.
whistling in between his singing.
Yes,
That was they're my memories. So yeah, I'm like an old man in a young man's body.
Yeah. So, but Ian Des O'Connor made that record years and years back, which mid-80s, I think it was. He was there on Top of the Pops. I can't remember, he called the Riverboat song or something like that. I can't remember, and it was just so obscure to see these two old-time singers just teaming up, and they were in the top 20, I think it was. Bizarrely, I don't know. Anyway, another tangent. Roger Whittaker tangent. We never have one of them again.
Yeah, there we go.
Right. Okay, so on from the Saturn then. Obviously, a system that you quite enjoyed. You mentioned this one. Yeah. Your next one is one you've already mentioned, which was a natural progression, really, moving from one to the other.
Yeah. So this was the PS1. I was at secondary school when I got this one, because I remember all my friends had actually got PlayStation 2s. So I'd had the Saturn for a long time. So again, the PS1 I remember getting from the car boot at the Big Polesworth Market. We walked around there and there was this one store selling it, and I think it was like 30-40 pounds. And I was all the way around there. As soon as I'd seen it and they said the price, I was like begging my mum and dad. I was like, please, can we get it for me? Yeah, come on. And it didn't even come with any games. I think it was boxed and came with the demo one disc, the one that had Wipeout on it. And eventually, I'd worn them down and they had bought it for me. But I say everyone else in my year at school had got a PS2. But for me to have this PS1, the fact that it also could play because it could play the music CDs as well.
That's right.
That was another big one. But I remember for quite a while, because I'd had to that. I think I'd said, well, you buy it from me and I'll give you a bit of my pocket money, or you don't have to give me pocket money for a while. Just some way to swing the deal. I'd not bought a game for that for months. So all I'd had was that original demo. It's like many people. When you listen back to these, a lot of people say the first thing they have is that demo disc, and they play the life out of it, thinking about what other games is there. Obviously, you see all the games on the back of the box. That's what I miss. You get the game box itself, and it would have images from other games, and we used to get them in the little Sega catalogs inside the Master System games that had other games on there. You'd be looking, going, "Oh, what's this?" That. So for there, and the PS1, that was probably one of the biggest game changes for me, because then it probably led down a big road of PlayStation for a long time. Again, through playing it at my friends and then playing it at the hospital a lot. Because like when I broken my arms, I'd say I'd done it several times, but I would have to go every week for a scan on my broken arm. Times that by, say the last one was when I was 18, so times that probably by at least 5 times of going. I think it used to take 6 to 8 weeks for it to heal. So that's 6 to 8 times, purely playing the PlayStation through this little thing. Thinking, oh, what is it? Say Croc is another one, but I say mainly I played it on the Saturn. But Crash Bandicoot, wow! For me, even though I know in my head 2 and 3 are better games because they're improvements on the original. Crash 1 holds that. If someone said to me you could only pick one of them to ever exist, it would be 1.
Yeah.
Easy. I wouldn't even think about it.
I agree.
Like even the first level, playing that one, it was incredible. Just it was, to me, it was just so different. The fact that it wasn't side to side, you were going forward and you could come backwards,
Yeah.
But again, it was really frustrating the amount of times you used to die because you jump and not quite gauge the depth.
Yes.
So you'd always fall down the little thing and or get killed by something. Or then it would be them bloody guys with the shields. You just jump onto the platform and then they bat you off, and you're like, "Oh, you bastard!" But then again, say I played 1, 2, and 3 on the PlayStation, and then when Crash Team Racing came out, because I'd had no real knowledge of Mario Kart, Crash Team Racing was the first real kart game I remember playing, and like I say, backtracking a little bit, when I said like one of the first games I completed was Killer Instinct on the Game Boy. The second one I remember completing was Sonic 1 on the Master System, because I've never completed that many games in my life. Sometimes I don't have the patience, or I'm just not good enough. I remember completing Crash Team Racing. I would play that for hours and hours and hours. I remember playing that final race against the alien character that's like the baddie in it, loads of times before I actually beat it. And when I did, that sense of achievement, I've not really had it much since, because I don't really play games to completion, because I'm probably not that good secretly. But
none of us are that good. No one ever admits to that. Good.
I'm sure, like everyone, I'm sure I was better when I was a kid. Must be the reactions or something. But yeah, Crash Team Racing. Yeah, Crash Team Racing was a great one. This is when FIFA came into it for me as well. So FIFA 98, 99, I think, was it 99 the first one that introduced the indoor football? Was that the one with Dennis Bergkamp on the front? Or was it 98?
99. 99 was...
There was 98, wasn't there? Then wasn't there a Road to the World Cup with 98, because it was the French with the chicken? I remember the little chicken dude.
I've got a vague memory. I think Road to the World Cup had Beckham on the front, didn't it?
Yeah. So I'm thinking, was it 99? I think, was it 99 that had Bergkamp on the front? I can't remember. I can't remember whether it was 98. Was 98? Was one of them Sol Campbell as well? I can't remember which one was Sol Campbell.
I think Sol Campbell was 2000. Sol Campbell was 2000.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think whichever one introduced
was 97.
Yeah, whichever one introduced the indoor element as well. I would play more on the indoor side of the FIFA, because I was big into football then. Obviously, playing it when I was a kid, and then I was just getting into starting to support Derby properly, the first proper team, because obviously they're my local team. I never used to when I was a kid. It was always one of my family members. They were a big Liverpool supporter, so I was sort of into football a bit, but I was always following Liverpool because they did. But then eventually I started watching Derby County and going to the games. Used to have the season ticket, so FIFA was big for me. Trying to live out that dream of being a footballer, even though it never really came to fruition, obviously. But what could have been. But yeah, the FIFA games. Obviously, you've got Rayman, classic platformer with the music of when you collect the notes. Lovely and stuff like that. Yeah, and just something different. The fact that he didn't have any arms. I know it's really because they said they couldn't grow the arms, could they? So they just did the floating hands and body. But I love that game.
Excuses they get out of it.
Yeah, I love that game.
Walt Disney had no problem drawing arms, so I don't see anyone had any problems drawing it.
But yeah, Medieval, that was another great game. It's mainly like the platformers. I think you probably, if anything, you look through my gaming history, it's platformers that probably, even though I think if you'd ask me, I'd probably say I don't like 3D platformers, but when you actually look at my history, I probably do. I think it's nowadays. Yeah. Jersey Devil, if you've ever listened, that's another platformer.
I remember that from the time, but I never actually played it. I saw it
Mm.
in the magazines and I saw it in the shops, but it never sort of registered with me as such. But it's a game I do know of.
Yeah, and then another one, maybe probably from when the film came out, but it was A Bug's Life.
Yes,
That was
yes, I
another
know
that
that.
was another game I remember completing on the PlayStation. I loved that game because I was big into sort of Disney back then. What is it? Is it Disney and Pixar or I can't think
Yeah,
what was it?
it was Pixar at the time.
Yeah, so
I think it became was it Disney Pixar? I can't remember.
obviously
I'm sure
I,
it's Pixar on its own.
I thought that was a great game. I never really played it on the N64 either, but on the PlayStation, that was a great game. And then as I started to get a bit older, I was trying to think. Obviously, I was at secondary school, so I would have started obviously becoming a teenager. Um, Playing Tony Hawk's, bit more edgier sort of game because of the music.
Mm.
I remember my best friend at the time. Then when I was at secondary school, we've known each other since nursery, so we used to go to the same nursery together because we used to live round the corner from each other. So I used to have my tea, literally walk down one street, and I'd be at his house. So I'd go up.
Mm.
He used to live in, I think it was the loft at the time. Go all the way up the stairs into his little loft room. He'd have his PlayStation set up, playing Tony Hawk's, and I wasn't really into skateboarding. He was more into like wearing the looser jeans and having like darker clothes and skateboarding and stuff like that.
Mm.
Because of my broken arms, I was horrific at any sort of balance things like that. First time I broke my arm, that was on some Fisher Price roller skates. I was literally trying to walk
Oh,
up a
good
step,
grief, yeah.
went backwards, put my arm out, and then it snapped. So
Yeah,
it sort
that
of
sounds
I'd
nasty.
always got that fear of doing it again. So I never skateboard or anything, but playing that game and listening to that music, and it's like the sort of music I love now.
Mm.
Like other than the older stuff that I grew up with, like rock and metal is what I like now. Which is great for me, obviously living near Castle Donington, so you can go to Download Festival and listen to all that music. Um, and then he was also big into wrestling, and sort of got
Yeah.
me into it when I was younger as well. So I'd never watched the older wrestling. For me, it was thinking back of it. It must have been late '90s, early 2000s, I think. So it was when it was WWF still. Um, it's the SmackDown games I'm talking about. They were SmackDown 1 and 2.
Yeah.
They were the games I
Hmm.
remember playing with him all the time. We were forever creating characters, or because he's my best friend. He loves horror, so he would create like Michael Myers, or his wrestler would be as close as he could get it to a horror character as he could. But I would be there. We used to watch wrestling together, and yeah, we'd watch that. So it was like the Stone Cold. Obviously, you've got The Rock,
Mm.
The Undertaker, Kane when he was in his red thing with the mask.
Yeah.
You didn't really know. Big Show. My favourite wrestler was Scotty 2 Hotty. It was a bit weird,
Oh
not
dear.
like a uber famous, but do you know what it was? I loved him
Yeah.
doing the little worm. There's my dog's kicking off.
Yeah.
It was
That's right. Yeah.
it was
They don't
him. It was
agree with
him
it.
doing.
They're arguing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was him doing the worm. I just loved his move.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, that was a move which looked so stupid. Should never have got over. But my goodness me, did
but
it?
but at
Yeah.
the
The
time it was
crowd
like,
went
wow,
crazy.
that yeah, people loved it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I remember. So yeah, the wrestling, I got into it a bit, that sort of era. Don't really watch it much now. I do like listening to your guys' streams on it though. Listening to like the golden age as well. It made me want to watch it more because I think like you probably agree that maybe wrestling was better back in the day than it is now.
Yeah.
Which
I
is
would say so.
much like the cartoon thing with me. It was better
Mm.
then than
Mm.
now. So I'd probably get into watching that now. So I'll end up blaming you for that somewhere down the line.
That's all
Um,
right. There's a long list
but
of them to blame me for. So yeah, just add it
but
to that. Really, it'll be fine.
yeah, and that
Mm.
was the main thing for me. Yeah, that
Mm.
so it got me into wrestling, and it was pretending to do wrestling at school that would have led to one of my many broken arms. Wrestling with a lad
Oh
at
dear.
school that was in our year. That he was probably no word of a lie. He was probably 6'2" when he was 14,
Mm.
doing a move. And whenever I break my arm, it never hurts, but I know I've done it because I go lightheaded. and he'd done this move on me, and I remember it was lunchtime, I got my coat on, and he'd done this move, and I got up and I felt I'd got that same feeling from the past of when I broke my arm, and I went, hang on a minute, guys, I said, something's wrong here, I've done this. Walked to the nurse's office with this, like, holding my jacket to keep my arm in, trying desperately to tell the nurse at the school, like, I even put because I'd gone really hot as well. I said she'd put a fan on the desk to cool me down, and I said you're gonna have to take this fan off the desk because it's vibrating this table like mad, this fan, and I said it's killing my arm. Because every time you go to A&E, you're there for like 4 hours, aren't you? Doesn't matter if you've got a leg missing. You've got a leg in one of your bag for life from Tesco, but you still got to wait 4 hours. But yeah, so that was from wrestling. It was when it was. I'm trying to think what it was. They always used to do the the move where you do like that on your crotch. I know they're not going to be able to see on the thing, but what was that? Generation X, was it, or something?
D-Generation X.
D-Generation X, yeah. DX, so they were obsessed with that. So we always used to wrestle to that, and so I ended up breaking my arm. So that's what put me off wrestling, probably. Yeah.
You broke your arm in a crotch shop?
No. I think you probably he was probably doing like the Stone Cold Stunner on me or something, and I just landed.
Right, okay, that makes a bit more sense.
I've done it. I've done it many different ways. Playing football, I've broken it. Running too fast and slipping over the ball, I've been tripped up running home when I was at school, and somebody stuck their foot out. I went sailing into the metal railings that used to be down the walkways, so that broke the top of my arm. I've done all sorts. I've broken my big toe trampolining on the bed. I've had my head split open by a plastic golf club, where somebody waved a plastic golf club and it came off the end and it cut me on the head. I mean, I don't know whether you'd seen any of my videos where I mentioned that I'd split my head open recently, this year, where I managed to nut an archway on a castle and split my head open. I'm very accident prone.
I was going to say, you are, aren't you? Yeah, I'm surprised you're laid outside, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well,
Goodness me.
I need to be bubble wrapped. But...
Yeah.
PS1 was that edgy side, Tony Hawk's, the music, SmackDown. That's what I remember about that system.
Sounds like that's a massive influence on your life growing up. That was
because it was from the teenage years.
Yeah, and then for the PlayStation 1, you moved on to PlayStation 2.
PlayStation 2. Yeah, so I remember when I had the PS2, my middle brother at the time, he had the Dreamcast. So my only knowledge of the Dreamcast was through going to his. But for me, the PS2 just stepped it up. So I carried on with the FIFA games, the 007 games, which I know have been mentioned recently. All of them games were fantastic. Because I never played like GoldenEye on the N64, so the James Bond games on the PlayStation 2 were my first step into sort of like the James Bond games, and they're all fantastic games. I've completed all of those, playing through the story. It felt like, because I'm a big Bond fan, so I felt like playing them was like you're in, because obviously a lot of them weren't based on a movie, they were their own thing. So
that's right.
It felt like another movie that you were playing through. Then the Lord of the Rings games. Loved the Lord of the Rings when that came out. Obviously, the film all ties into there. So playing the Lord of the Rings games, where you're sort of going through the levels, doing little sections, killing the orcs, moving on to the next one. Then obviously, then when you did the big battles that are in like the Helm's Deep and from the second movie, and then the third one where you've got the big final battle, they were epic to me. Picking which character you wanted to be, and then. Another ones I really liked was the World Rally Championship games, the racing games.
Yeah.
Sort of dipped in and out of racing games. So like for the Saturn, obviously you had Sega Rally and Daytona, stuff like that. But the World Rally Championship games, I would spend absolutely ages doing the seasons. So you would do the full sort of campaign on that, playing through it as one character, trying to win the races to become the best in the whole championship. Even I think there's quite a few on the PS2. Every year I would wait for the next one to come out, get the next one, because I remember watching it. I think maybe rallying at the time was maybe on, I want to say either Channel 4, Channel 5. I feel more like it'd be a Channel 5 sort of scenario.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
So watching the rallying, because I was never a big F1 fan, and my dad used to love Formula One. So on a Sunday, we'd be eating dinner. My mum would be cooking dinner or whatever. We'd have Sunday dinner at the table in the living room. And my dad would have Formula One in the background, and all you could hear is you, and it'd drive me nuts. Because nothing interesting ever happened on Formula One. I do actually like motorbike racing because something happens. So because my older brother's into motorbike, so we have been to see some motorbike races and stuff like that. But yeah, the World Rally one was just so interesting because it was so fast. It felt dangerous, and to do that on the game, to sort of race really fast, thinking you've got control, but at any time you could spiral off into the woods or whatever. Or I love those games because it was something different to the normal, traditional racing. Then we've got one of my all-time favourites on the PS2, which was Final Fantasy X. So I remember Final Fantasy VII coming out on the PlayStation 1 because I remember all my friends at school talking about that game and how that it was like, was it four or five discs, was it, for Final Fantasy VII? It was quite a few discs, and I was like, but they were all mad into it, and I'd never played it at the time, but I remember seeing Final Fantasy X come out, and I thought, oh, Final Fantasy, I remember all my friends talking about that on the PlayStation 1, let's give it a go. And when you see the start, like the music again in this, like I could sit and listen to the intro music of Final Fantasy X now, just that little calming, because it sort of starts relatively towards the end in the cutscene. You're gonna cough. Cut it out there.
Yeah, I mute myself there. Sorry.
So yeah, but you listen to the music, and then it had those really epic. I mean, I don't know whether you played it, but it's got these really epic cutscenes, like where you sort of see bits in during the gameplay of cutscenes where it's slightly different graphics, but when it properly goes into like the intro, it went so realistic. I think I'd never seen anything like that before in the games. Like you would see it, like there's one scene where you see the main character in like a pool of water, and it's like, God, that water looks real. This character looks real. It's not like majorly different, like he's got a massive head or anything stupid like that you will get like in the old Final Fantasy VII. He was just walking around with a little massive head and little hands and like diamond shaped hands, wasn't he? But this one was so realistic, and I love the story of it. I think it was probably because of the timing of it and the fact that it was essentially with it. It's a dad, a dad and a son at the start, and then his dad goes missing, and then later you sort of discover that the main baddie really is his dad that's changed into. I think because at that time that's when I'd lost my dad, and it probably resonated through that because I was in my mock GCSE year. I was only 15 when he died, so it probably hit me at the right time to play it, and that's probably why I gravitated towards it. But I loved that sort of the turn-based style of it. It was a big game. It was just a fantastic game. That one, and then obviously Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, and that's another great game, great series of games.
Yeah,
And
I
I played the first on the PlayStation 1, so.
To be honest, I hated the PS1 ones. I couldn't get on with the movement of the character. It reminded me a lot of Micro Machines. When you used to,
I see why.
because you had that top down style, but it was like, even though like on Micro Machines you think, oh, actually I need to turn left now, but in the real life, if you were in that car, you would be turning right. But because of where it was on the, and I would constantly be doing that on Grand Theft Auto on the PlayStation 1. I would be driving into walls, running people over, then I'd be chased by the police, and I spent half the game just running around trying not to get killed by the police all the time. Whereas when GTA 3 came, and then obviously the other ones, that again was so different to what had come before that it just, again, it just captured something, that it was just so different. I do love the PS2. It's such a great system, and with it being a DVD player as well. First DVD player I had in my bedroom was that, so I could watch my own films. It's because I do love movies as well, so, and watching comedy things on there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was because I remember, I think at the time, I think my PlayStation 2 was my DVD player, but I still had a VHS. Trying to think whether it was sort of integrated into my TV or not, but I remember watching a lot of stuff at the time, because obviously I'd lost my dad. It was comedy and gaming were how I coped with it. So I would play long games that I would get invested into and escape reality, or I would watch comedy VHS over and over and over again until sometimes I'd struggle to sleep. So I would watch the same comedy DVD 3 or 4 times until I fell asleep. And then I would often wake up to it, the sound of it rewinding, and that's how it would get me through it. Watching that until I had no option but to fall asleep. So PS2 was, again, say it's a fantastic console. I know it's got a lot of crap on there, but if you look out for the good games, there's a lot on there.
Yeah, and you're right. There are a lot of good games out there, and there's a lot of crap on that system as well. But there are a lot of good games for it. But it's the same with any system, Liam. It's you got your good games and your bad games. Really, it's not been one of my favourites. I longed after one for ages, and I was a bit underwhelmed when I got it. But it's not a bad system. I just prefer other systems that it was up against over it. Really.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones. If you had the PS2 and graduated up, and played the games on there that you really loved, then you've probably got that affinity for it. But if it's one, I think if you go back to retrospectively, maybe because of all the crap that's on there, sometimes you might have to hunt through to find the games that you would really like. One I forgot to mention on the PS1 that I really love is MDK. I know that was a PC game as well. I loved MDK. That was such a great game, and I wish they'd do a toy line for it. I'd love to collect toys for it. But seeing that, do you remember the one I mean? The one with the guy in the black suit with the long,
with the huge long helmet on Monday.
I've got the PS1 game. I've got the PS because the second game came out on the Dreamcast and the PS2, so it wasn't on the PS1. And then recently, Corbana, he found the PC game in a charity shop for 50p. Put it on our little WhatsApp group. They knew wanted it, and I was like, "Oh, me," because I love that game, and I know full well it plays a hell of a lot better graphics on the PC. So I was like, "Yeah, please, I'll do that." And if I ever get a laptop, I'll boot it up and just to play that. That was another fantastic game. Sorry, I know my mind's ping ponging around all the different things. It's just the stuff pops in. Even though I've done all this massive list, it's whatever pops in my head. But the Grand Theft Auto games. I mean, did you want me to go on to the one on my list?
Well, let's touch on the system after PlayStation 2 before we get to that, because that leads in with something else as well. Then.
Yeah. So after that, at this time, I had at the same time as the PS2, I had my PC in my room. So originally, I remember when we got our first computer, it was purely like MS DOS. I remember my mum had got it from her work because basically they were wiping all their old PCs and getting rid of them to upgrade to new ones. Cause she used to work for the council, and she basically said to someone like, "Look, can I have it instead of it being binned?" And they were like, "Yeah, whatever." So I had it in my room, but I don't remember playing any games on it. I didn't even know there were MS DOS games. All I used to do was dick around for about half an hour until I find some way of finding a notepad where I could actually type something. It was like a green, two-tone green screen, and all I'd do is type. But because we never had a computer at primary school, it was only secondary school that we really had them. So to have a PC at home was amazing. And then eventually we ended up getting a half decent. I think I think when I was at school, it started at Windows 95 and just graduated to Windows 98 when I was at secondary school doing computers there. So I think it was probably either 95 or 98 machine that we had at home. But yeah, PC gaming. Again, I always remember them being quite cheap. I don't know where we would have got the games from. I don't remember going into any game shops and getting them, or whether again it was good old fashioned Sunday car boots at Donny Car Boot getting them. But like the main ones I used to play again because I was a big football enthusiast. It was Champ Manager.
Yeah. I'm big fan of that.
When I was doing my list for this, I was trying to wrap my brain to remember because I've played so many iterations of it. I remember playing the older ones where it was more like spreadsheets and the game was played out as little dots. I can't remember for laughing. Remember which one was the first one I had. I remember. I think because on PC was it just Champ Manager and then whatever the season year was? Because in my head, the one that comes to mind is Champ Manager 4. And I have seen it in the local CX. That's the blue. I remember the blue cover, the CM4. But I don't think that was the earliest I had. I'm pretty sure I've had before then. But what year was Champ Manager 4? Would that have been late 90s or early 2000s?
No,
Was it?
it was a bit later than that. It was probably around about 2000, and it was before the series split. There was Champ Manager 4, there was Champ Manager 0304, and then the series that then the developers split, and then you had Football Manager 2005, which is now.
So was there a Champ Manager 98? Was there anything based on 90? So I'm thinking that would have been. Yeah, so I'm trying to think when it. Because when I first played it, it was definitely there was no game to watch. It was dots.
Well, that would have been. That would have been Championship Manager 4. That was the first time they used that engine. Before that, it was very much text based.
Yeah, I think maybe I did play the text ones because I do remember eventually when it had graduated up to being able to watch somewhat like what a normal game was. It's basically like watching a FIFA match. But then I sort of my memory goes vague as to whether it was Champ Manager or whether it came into that because that was then like you'd have the PlayStation like your LMA Manager and because I love the management side of stuff. Watching that and like when you'd be able to like not only because I'd always be Derby County. Because they ain't the best team in the world, so you have got to try and do something with them to try and get. They've never been, except for back in the day, very back in the day.
Yes.
They're not very good.
Back in the day,
yeah. But that side of it, managing them, and obviously you get all the players that you know, and try and getting decent players from other teams. And then I think there was it the one? Did they always have the one where you could sort of upgrade your stadium and? Or was that more based from the console side a bit? Trying to think.
That's Premier Manager. Premier Manager is one of those. I'm just trying to remember because the series jumped all over the place with Champion Manager with the numbers. It started off, I think, as Championship Manager, then it was Championship Manager 93, 94. Then you had Championship Manager 2, then you had Championship Manager 3, then it was 96, 97.
Yeah.
Then it was 97, 98.
I'm pretty sure every time it came out, I went to the next one. So whatever the latest iteration of it was. But yeah, when it got to the ones where you were picking your stadium and you could, could you set ticket prices and stuff like that? And it got so in depth with it. And I did used to like that side of it, of like the sort of financial management side of your football teams as well as players and all that.
That put me off. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to, just pick the team and do the tactics and do that. I couldn't be bothered with all that. That's when that turned it off. That's when it started becoming Football Manager. That became sort of like club football, club and Football Manager. I don't want to do all that stuff.
Real job simulator, isn't it?
Yeah. I want my games to separate from real life. I don't want to be taught how to do something. It's like educational software. I don't want to sit there and learn how to do something. I want to play the game and get on with it and do that side. It's called Football Manager. It's not called manage your finances of a football club manager. No, thank you. I don't do that.
It became too involved for you. But say that was the one main thing that I liked, and then also the other one was like the strategy games and like at the time I loved Age of Empires. So Age of Empires 2 was the first one I played. When you used to have to, you'd pick who you wanted to be. You start off very small and what you had, maybe like a scout and a base, and that was it. And you'd have to go out, build up, build your armies, build your civilizations. Any sort of game based on that I love. So Age of Empires, I say that was popular at school, so that's why I got into that one. There was a Star Wars one I played. There's two different versions of it. I've got one. I'm trying to stretch. That's the one I've got currently.
Oh, Empires at War. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's. I don't think that's the same version. I think because there was one. I think it was called Galactic Battlegrounds. I think it was a bit like you picked whether you're obviously the rebellion or the empire, and you would have a base, go out, do all that sort of stuff, get your resources, and just have a big battle at the end of it. That's what I loved. The starting off to see who could get there fastest to be the best army or whatever. But then also at the time, that's when the internet really started kicking off. So at secondary school, it was much into not online gaming as you're thinking of it now with sort of Fortnite and all that sort of stuff. It was at the time there was the one main thing that everyone used to play. It was called RuneScape.
Okay.
So it was essentially you would pick a character. You start off and you've got here's your character with a bronze axe. So you go out to be tasked to do in the world. So it's a bit like, I suppose, a bit like World of Warcraft. It's like the old-fashioned games where you go out, talk to someone, and they say, "I need you to fetch me this resource." So you go and fetch it. You're doing some experience. They probably give you something for it, but in between, you'd fight like little scorpions or whatever like that. Build up your stats. You'd go out mining these specific coloured rocks because you had a bronze axe. You could mine for bronze. As you got better, you'll be able to afford a iron axe. So then you could then iron for bronze. You could mine for bronze and iron, and it would work your way up until I think their top one was called Mithril, a bit like what they have in Lord of the Rings. But that was the main one. So you'd go and do your levels, and you'd see all these characters wandering around, talking to each other. There are obviously other people around the world doing these little missions, running off. You'd inevitably, if you got half decent enough gear, you'd get battered by a group of people that would do your stuff, rob all your equipment, and then you'd wake up with nothing. Cyberbullying, even as the ginger's best friend, that is. And then obviously my other game I'd put on there for the PC gaming is one that's on my list. Do you want me to go into that? So
yeah, let's pick those three. We've mentioned two of them so far, haven't we? So
yeah,
we'll move on to that. And
sorry about that. We'll go back to
it's fine, mate. It's as it is. So the fourth game on your list then is PC game.
Yeah. So and I've got the box here for you to see. So
I can see
that. Yeah. So that is the second one.
Star Trek. Yeah, Star Trek Armada 2.
Yeah. So I'd originally played the first one, and again, it's very much it's like the sort of civilization, command and conquer style game. So you start off with basically a base, a small base, and a scout ship, and it's a big screen with basically the fog of war. So obviously, with it being Star Trek, you're in space. You pick who you want to be. So whether you want to be, so the second one they added more species in there. So you could be, obviously you've got the Federation, you've got the Klingons, Romulan, whatever. You could be the Borg, which is a big thing. Because I love Star Trek, the TV series, all the iterations of it. So when this came out, I was like, perfect. And I played the first one, loved it, but this second one had just gone up another level with the different ships, and it had the newer ones, because I think around this time was when First Contact, the movie, had come out. So it got the latest iteration of the Enterprise out, and that version of the Enterprise is my favourite version. I do like, obviously the other ones are nostalgic to me, but this one I just love the look of it, and seeing it in First Contact was such a great film. So I loved this one. I'd nearly always play as the Federation. I wouldn't play as anyone else. But yeah, you'd go out. You'd basically have this little scout, and you just you click on somewhere on the screen, and in this fog of war, and it'd go. And as it'd move, it'd open up what you could see, and you'd hope you'd find a little planet with resources that you could mine. So you go, right, I'll build a mining facility next to it. starts building that. Obviously, it does a little ship that goes out and mines the ore, comes back, and then you go off and scout somewhere else. And as you build resources, you build other base. You build like a starship. What do I want to say? Like a shipyard to be able to build new ships.
Yeah.
You build a research base that would allow you to get new technology for your starships, as well as upgrading your defenses and upgrading what ships you could build. And basically, you play through the story mode, so it'd be like you'd be you against the Klingons, and they could be anywhere on that map. They could be right next to you, and you wouldn't know until eventually you'd see one of their little ships pop through what you could see. And you go, oh my god, they're right there, or or it could be right at the top. You'd crap yourself because you'd be out there building up, thinking, oh, I look, my base is quite decent or whatever. And then you get to them and you'd like manage to just uncover their base and you go, holy crap, they are a million miles ahead of me, because the way the map was generated, they had more resources their way on. So then you think, right, now I need to really go for it, try and take over a couple of their resource bases, because you could sort of like take them over as well as destroy them and build your own. But you just do that and then you go, right, now I've got a bit of a foothold. Now let's start building a massive army. And I'll go, right, okay, I've got about 10 decent ships now that have got decent weapons. I'm going to go for it. This is the big moment. This is the big push. The whistles have gone. We're going over the top, boys. And you go for it, and you'd either win or you get absolutely battered, and you'd have to come back with your tail thinking, just hoping that in that time you've managed to build a few more ships that could defend you, because they would come after you. You'd attack them, and they go, okay, then let's go for it. So they come back for you, and I just love that side of it, because every mission was different. You could pick it to do online, which I never really did, but you could do it just to do a skirmish. So you could pick what your maximum resources you could get, different maps, and you could just go. You can go me against the Klingons. You could go, well, actually, I want to be me against every other race that you can be in this. They're all on the map somewhere. Let's really go for it. See who can do the best. And I just love that side of the game for it. Like, I have a little bit of it now in the dreaded mobile gaming, but I play a little bit similar, but like Clash of the Clans. I don't know if you've ever heard it. It's quite an old mobile game.
Not heard of that one. Oh no, I have actually. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, basically, again, you start off with the base resources, all that sort of jazz. I have played that. I play that. I wouldn't say, when you say play, it means log on for like 5 seconds, do a bit of management, and then come off.
Yeah.
But I have played that pretty much since it came out. Same with Pokemon Go. I know people don't really talk much about mobile gaming, but Pokemon Go, I log on to that every day. Whether I play, quote unquote, the game, but I'm on it every day. And I do like them sort of strategy games where you have to build up and become this great, like Civilization. I love Civilization as well. That's another great game.
Yeah.
Anything like that, it just. I probably as a youngster, I never thought that would be my sort of game, but it turns out it is. I do really love them sorts of games.
It's funny how it turns out, doesn't it? You get into certain sort of games, and you never, not my sort of thing. You never think when you're younger playing something like that. I used to. They're not my games. That's no way. I wouldn't sit down and play something like that. I think they sound great, but the way you talk about it and the way other people have been on here have spoken about them, you have to put a lot of time into it. And if I had that time ages ago, I probably would have. But I was playing other games that took a lot of time, so I got invested in those rather than these.
It can be good to watch. You watched Al did a recent stream on Command and Conquer. I think he was playing on the PS1. But if you watch that, like, I'd never really played Command and Conquer when I was younger, so to watch that I was like, I need to get that now, because it is exactly the same sort of premise. It's just a reskin of the same idea, but having Star Trek in it as well as what the game was, it was a perfect match for me. And
I'd never have him down as playing that sort of game either, which is even more surprised. I didn't realise how much he enjoyed those games before he came on here. And again, it's like, you learn something a little bit more about somebody each time you talk to them, and a little bit.
Yeah, well, out, so. you assume with that he likes paying shit, but God love him. I love him really. If he's listening, sorry, he'll probably send me an aggressive text now. But that's all right. but it's
Just put it with the other ones you've had. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, add it to the list. But I'd never have pit him against liking that sort of game. But yeah, when I watched it, I was like, I need to play that. So
yeah. So that's Star Trek Armada 2.
Armada 2, yeah.
Next one, you mentioned it already, but again.
Yeah, so that was again Grand Theft Auto 3 on the PlayStation 2. So obviously, whenever you talk about the PS2 Grand Theft Autos, I think everyone either tends to gravitate towards Vice City because it was an upgrade on 3, and obviously the 80s, everyone loves the 80s, the music, the way it was that. Don't get me wrong, Vice City is a great game. Or they sort of bypassed 3 and maybe did Vice City and San Andreas, so they tend to gravitate towards San Andreas because it was different. The character was different that you played with. But for me, I'm one of them ones. It's always the original one on that. I know it's not the original Grand Theft Auto, but on the PS2, the GTA 3 is the best. I know maybe in my head, Vice City might be a better game, but in my heart, I would always play 3 because it was the first one I got addicted to in that series, and it led to it. So for me, it's always the origin that I gravitate towards than anything that's better, just because it's better. So yeah, the Grand Theft Auto 3, that it was such a big world that you could play in, all the funny missions, and you'd have you get in a car and you'd have them great radio stations on, weird and wacky stuff playing and stupid adverts. The fact that the typical thing, obviously, when I was a teenager,
it adds to the charm of the game.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
but
obviously the whole atmosphere.
Being a teenager, and you could pick up Women of the Night and do the bizzo, and you see the car shaking, and then you do the typical thing of beat them up afterwards and get your money back. You know what I mean? It's sort of still tight with money even then, even in a virtual world. But it's that's the sort of thing. It was just different, yeah. That
clean cut image you've got, mate, has gone out the window now.
Yeah, other ways of virtually killing prostitutes are available. That's a disclaimer. It was just such a great game. It was so different, and just so different to the others. Because for me, when I played the PS1 ones, I didn't really like them. So for 3 to do that to me and really convert me meant a lot. And again, it's one of the ones now I downloaded it onto the PS4, like the updated versions, to try and not just complete it, because I completed the story, but I wanted to 100% it.
Yeah.
And that was mainly through watching YouTube. I don't know, have you ever watched the In-Betweeners?
Yes.
So James Buckley has a YouTube channel. He has several, but he had a YouTube channel called Completed It, Mate. And I think it was probably through me searching through gameplay for games and watching you guys that it come up with him playing Grand Theft Auto 3 on his channel. And I watched all of his playthroughs of it, and he'd be chatting, funny stories, talking about the missions. And I thought, what he was essentially trying to do was, he'd played this game when he was younger, and he wanted to 100% it. So it was he was documenting his journey going through it, and it got me into thinking, I really want to do that. This must have been 2018, because I remember going to Doncaster Game Market purely to buy the guide book. That was my only thing on my shopping list, really, that I wanted, was the guidebook for Grand Theft Auto 3. Because I remember he was playing it, and as he got towards the end of it, he was sort of saying, I've done it the wrong way around. He was like going, what I should do, because obviously you've got your main story missions, but you've also got the side of finding these hidden packages. And he said the downside is, if you do the story, as you progress through the story and open up the other islands, certain gangs hate you because of what you've done in the story. So you can then go, if you're on the third island, by the time you get to the first one again, people are shooting at you in the street because of what you've done. So to try and hunt down packages when you could get shot at any time is a stupid way of doing it. So I bought the guide in essence to try and get the packages first and then do the missions, and then it's not. I've not really done it yet, and I think now I'm probably going to wait till, because they're doing a remastered version of the trilogy. It's probably similar to what I'm playing on the
That's
PS4
right.
now, but I'm thinking
Yeah.
about getting it on the Switch purely because then I can play it in bed. But yeah, that game is just what it was great, and I know Vice City is better. I know it is, but it doesn't. For me, Vice City was good because I know I'd got them feelings from GTA 3. GTA 3, I had no feelings from 1 and 2, all the London missions that they did.
Yeah.
It was purely because that was a good game and that grabbed me. So that's why it's on my list. It's one of them ones where I could play that. I could play that when I'm 80 if I last that long, and I would still like it.
Yeah.
So
No, but that's the thing. That's what games should be all about. You should still get as much enjoyment out of them when you're, 28 or 80. That's how it
yeah,
should be, and you should still be able to go back to it. And that's why so many people are interested in this remake or this remaster of those games, which are coming out shortly for it. I read about that last week, I think it was. So, it'd be interesting to see how those turn out.
yeah.
Now, the last game on your list. I'm absolutely fascinated to hear about this one because it's a system we very rarely mentioned, if at all. So I'm absolutely delighted this has cropped up.
Well, I thought I put one from this system on because obviously there's not many in our community really that own one. And I thought because I did, I thought it would be because don't get me wrong, I do love this game. It's my favourite game on this system, but I thought because of that system, I may as well say something different. So obviously this is Berserk on the Vectrex. So obviously I've got
the Vectrex. We haven't had a
I
Vectrex
know.
game on before.
Yeah,
I've been
so
shown this wonderful
yeah,
condition box that you're showing me at the
it's
moment,
not
which
too
nobody
bad.
else
Yeah,
has seen.
I try and get half decent ones. That's what I want is box versions of the games.
This is an old
So
arcade game, isn't it? I think.
yeah, it is. So obviously in the arcade, you do get it on this one. You've got the in the arcade version of it, you've got the speech as well of the robots and stuff like that. Whereas with this one, it's one of them games. It's a simple premise. You basically just want to beat your high score, try and last as long as you can, beat the high score. It's one of the ones where I don't really think it ends. It's you just keep on going because you go through and you've got a certain drawn out maze with the robots in. You've got to shoot them. They're shooting at you. You've got to dodge the bullets, and then you get one of the most evil villains ever in Evil Otto, the little happy smiley face, bounces round. He can move ever so slightly faster than you. So if you're in the middle of the screen or towards where he appears, you've got to really leg it. And it's that risk versus reward. It's do you stay and try and get a few more of the robots to clear the level and gain the extra points, or do you leg it out there because you know full well if you don't, he is going to get you. And he comes through and he just bounces across with his little happy smiley face, just going to kill you. He's a bastard. But I just love that simple. You go through to the next level and there's different robots. The robots can be really daft and they can walk into the walls and kill themselves. Or
I know.
you could go into
I've played it.
yeah,
It's
you
weird.
could go into the room where you can have one right at you and he shoots you straight away. It's that you don't know what's going to happen, and it's the whole thing with the Vectrex. You've got the difference in the graphics. You've got the overlay on the screen. I play mine. I have the UV light overlay and the UV. I bought the UV light mod and then the UV overlays that you can buy as well. I bought the one with it's basically got a moon at the bottom of it because obviously the packing
Right.
game with it is like I think it's from Mindstorm, so it's like asteroids. So I bought it. I bought that overlay purely for that, but it does look nice because when you turn it on and it's dark in this room and you've just got that going with that UV light, it looks fantastic. It is such a great system that's so different to anything else because I've never played anything with vector graphics in the arcade. I've never played the original Star Wars. I have since when they did like an arcade sort of gaming day in Derby. I think there were either they got rid of the library in Derby or they've moved it somewhere else, and they'd used the building to put there was like an arcade event, so you'd only pay, I think it was like £3, and you go there all day, and it got really old arcade machines up to some of the newer stuff, and also some of the consoles set up as well. So it was a bit like probably like what Arcade Club is, but a very watered down Derby version of it. So it's a bit crapper, but it was great because it had Berserk.
I was going to ask, was there much call for a library in Derby or not?
None of us can read, but
sorry.
I'll be the first one to shit on Derby. I don't mind, but it's I played on the Star Wars arcade, the sit-in one.
Yeah,
and it was that was great, and it had Donkey Kong the cab. So I was playing all these classic games that people have probably replayed and falling in love with them because again it's that simple game, and it's games that you could probably download onto the Switch or something like that now to get a hold of. But yeah, I say the Vectrex is such a fantastic console, and I've got 9 games for it at the minute. 8 of them are original games, and 1 is a newer, like the homebrew scene, because that's massive on the Vectrex.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So I got there's loads of, and to be honest, the homebrews command a much higher price than the normal games because they're done in a limited run.
Right.
So sometimes you don't get many at all. If you're probably lucky if there's 50 copies of a game. So
that's very limited.
and I bought. You'll see it actually because I got at the time I got it because I'd actually got a second Vectrex, and I knew because I bought it for the games, and I knew Tootie was after one. So this will be a little story into how I got into YouTube. But basically, managed to get Stu's number. I'd messaged him somehow and said, "Look, I've got a spare one going. Do you want it?" I was like, "I'm not really fussed about the money." I said, "I know you want one. I've got one. Do you want to work out a deal for something or whatever?" And he is the first YouTuber I met in person because I dropped it off at his house. And I'd said to him at the time, it was during, I know it was dodgy times, it was during COVID, but we talked outside of his house, and he'd sort of said, and I said to him like that I collect a little bit, and I'd watch YouTube for absolute like years and years and years, 6 or 7 years probably. I've watched it, and I said, I'm thinking about doing it because at the time during lockdown, you have a lot of time to yourself, and the 2 realizations I came to was that my life was going to work, doing work, and then coming home. That was my life. I did very little, if anything, outside of those 2 buildings. So I did nothing, and I said, other than my old school friends, I said it sounds a bit sad, but I didn't really have any friends because I have had work colleagues. Obviously, I got my wife, but I got my work colleagues, or I got my old school friends that I just used to text because they live far away. So I said I wanted it to basically have something to do in my life, but then also to meet new friends, because obviously watching you guys for years, you feel like I probably thought you guys were my friends before you even know I existed. But that's the way of the world, isn't it? It's like when you watch a celebrity, you know everything about them and stuff like that, but they don't know you from Adam. So, and he was he said, "What if you've got it?" He said, "Just go for it," and that's what I did.
Yeah, they don't like you approaching them. They don't like you approaching them at all.
Yeah.
Tried
that's my other nickname is "Hey, you in the bushes," but that's the but that's what it's like, isn't it? You like I know really as YouTube, we're not celebrities or anything, but it's somebody that you watch. Someone that you watch, you feel you know them, but like I say, they don't know you. So, but yeah, I'm a voyeur that's wormed his way in. I am the cuckoo. I'm the cuckoo in your lot's nest.
Well, the good thing about you join the long list of people that Stu's integrated into the community, or brought in, or groomed. I think was the word we used. I don't use that word. It's slightly unfair because Stu was the first person who sent me anything. and he was showing something off his channel, and I used to watch him all the time, and I sort of commented, "Oh, that's a really good condition game," and he sort of got in contact. He said, "Look, well, I've already got this." He said, "If you want it, you can have it," and he just sent it to me. And I met him at Birmingham Game Market 2 years ago, and he gave me something else then, and regularly puts a comment on my video, and I know he enjoyed the cartoon stuff as well. So, and he's done a lot for a lot of people as well.
He's, like I say, because I was obviously been to that gaming market. Yeah, he is. And obviously, because I've been to that gaming market in 2018, that's before I'd even come onto YouTube. So, again, one of the sad things is that in crowds and crowded rooms, I go very introverted and I'm quite shy in real life.
You'd never known that.
No, but that's what all my family said. When I'd not told anyone in my family really that I'd done YouTube. It was only really eventually I said, because my nieces are older, I said I'd shown them, and then they showed my brothers, and they were like, "I can't believe you're so confident on camera." And I was like, "I don't know where it comes from, but because I'm at home, you know."
Yeah.
But in a crowd, I struggle, and then I think I've probably seen a lot of the YouTubers I watch setting or meeting up. I vividly remember seeing like Beth Bear and Eddie and that talking in a group. But I never went anywhere near him because I was too afraid that they'd go, "Who are you?" And I wouldn't know what to say. And I don't think I've got good gaming knowledge. I know what I know, and that's about it. But I haven't got a wide knowledge about stuff, so I don't really know what I chat about. So I basically looked from afar like a weirdo, wandered around the gaming market, and then came home. And so it's been great for me because it's brought me out of my shell more, and now obviously like meeting like-minded people that like the same things. It is like a big friendship group. That's the best thing about it, and everyone's kind to each other. Really, I know there's bits of crap going on now and then, but you know, everyone's really kind to each other. You know, people do send stuff to people and bits like that, and it's just that's what I love about it.
Yeah, you're right, and that side of it works really well. We've had the pleasure of meeting each other once so far, and let's do it again sometime. It's very, very short meeting time, but no, it was good. Now we get to do it again, and I enjoy it. I mean, I went to Birmingham Gaming Market in September, walked through the door, literally 10 seconds, turned around and bumped straight into Eddie.
Yeah,
you know, and that's how it is sometimes. Oh, hello, you know, and that was it. You're off
yeah,
and running,
and that's it. That's your day sorted, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It was good. Yeah, it's good to do that. Yeah, okay then, mate. Right, well, times are marching. I don't want to push. I don't like to push people through this, but we've nearly up to the 3-hour market.
I've been
still got
crap, haven't I? I know. I need to go to that quick. Right. So,
so what we'll do now? Let's drop back to your last bit, your gaming history. Give us edited, you know, the sort of the high points from it.
The high points. Is it a bridge? A bridge?
Yeah, because what I like to do, obviously, we've got the 2 games to finish on. They're quite important part of it. So, give us sort of the edited highlights of the rest of your gaming history.
So after the PC, I sort of mentioned this obviously with my first game on my list, but it was the GameCube. So obviously that I'd say bought it off a friend at school. Love that. It was such a quirky little system. Obviously the size of it, tiny little discs. And I remember vividly renting games for this at the local Blockbusters. Obviously, you've got like your Zeldas, your Wind Waker, Twilight Princess. They were both so different on there. Pokemon games, because obviously being a Pokemon fan, seeing those, they were sort of edging towards what I wanted. It was that sort of more 3D, going into something closer to what I had in my mind that I wanted Pokemon to evolve into on the gaming systems. They were fantastic games. I've got Destroy All Monsters on there. I vividly remember renting that, or getting my dad to rent it, because I can't remember whether I could rent it at the time. That's like Godzilla, and you've got other monsters on there as well. So you've got like the Mecha Godzilla and all the other ones like that. Big Godzilla fan as well. So, I watched. I'll show you. Sorry to be, but I watched this the other day. I was telling some of the lads. It is the Asian version.
I think Claire watched that.
It is
My Claire's a massive Godzilla fan as well, so
so weird.
yeah,
I don't know what I thought about it, but it was cheap in HMV. I've got obviously you've got the Mario games on there. Sunshine I
yeah.
liked.
I like
Very
Sunshine. I'm a
different,
big fan of that.
very different to Mario 64. So I liked it, but I don't think I got into it as much. Um, Need for Speed games I loved. So the driving
Oh
games
yes,
continue through this, but Need for Speed Underground 2, a bit of a bittersweet memory with it is I remember playing this at my best friend's house in his loft, listening to the great music. Probably missed some of the. I think it was either the music on the game or the music we were listening to in real life while we were playing was the Lost Prophets. And now anyone that knows anything about the Lost Prophets knows that the lead singer was a bit of a bad egg, to put it politely.
yes.
So
They said that. That's ringing a bell. Yeah, yeah.
so to listen to that music now is very hard because it brings me memories of this game. So it's a bit hard to play this game now because it's linked to that music and obviously subsequently knowing what he's done. Enter the Matrix, another great game. I love that because I love the Matrix film. We watched 1 and 2 yesterday because I want to go and watch the new one when that comes out. So my wife was like, let's rewatch the other ones to sort of catch her back up. Soul Calibur games.
Yep.
So I've got Soul Calibur 2. I think that's the one where they introduced Link because they'd started doing each console had a different character that was unique to them. So obviously Nintendo
Oh
had
yeah,
Zelda. I think trying to think what PS2 had, whether it was Yoda first or Darth. I think Darth Vader might have been the PS3 one. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
I think
they're all different.
they
So
were PS3, weren't they? Yeah.
each iteration had a different. So Xbox had a specific one and what have you. Fantastic fighting game, Soul Calibur. I liked it because you had the weapons, so it wasn't based on necessarily the special moves or anything like that, which I could never pull off. Like, especially like Mortal Kombat. I don't think I've ever done a finisher in my life.
Me neither.
So, but for Soul Calibur, I felt like I could do something with it. And then another fantastic game, Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2.
Yes.
So with the TIE fighter on the front cover, that was a fantastic game.
I think they were all really good games.
Yeah.
I think when I got my GameCube at launch, was it Rogue Leader? I think it was. Was it Rogue Leader? Yeah.
Rogue Leader, yeah. Because Rogue Squadron was the N64 one, I think.
Yeah, Rogue Leader. I mean, it's just a fantastic game. It still looks really good now. I still think it's a really good game.
A great game, but it's good gameplay. That's the key thing because they have done a lot of crap Star Wars games. Although one of the ones I really loved on the PS1 was Star Wars Demolition. That came out on the Dreamcast as well. But Star Wars Demolition, where you could pick your characters, and it was basically like an arena battler, but you could be, one of the because obviously it was. People will probably hate this, but Episode 1. Obviously, if you I knew of the original Star Wars. I remember watching them as a kid, but Episode 1 was the first Star Wars I watched in the cinema. So it was my first the first Star Wars I could go and watch. So even though I know it's not great, it was my Star Wars. So I do sort of semi like Episode 1. I know, people will be coming after me for that, but I like the games around it.
I went to watch that in the cinema when it came out. We were there first weekend. It's the first Star Wars film I saw on release in the cinema. I'd seen the re-release of Star Wars in '97, and I saw the re-release of Empire Strikes Back. I didn't see Return of the Jedi at all on the big screen. But first weekend Phantom Menace was out. I was there, front row. For some reason, nobody wanted to sit there. So.
I think it took a while for the originals to come out on TV, didn't they? So I think I can't remember whether I watched some on TV of the original trilogy, but I know vividly my brother he had the box sets on VHS, and I think he must have had, because whether I'm making this up or not, I think was it the original Boba Fett? Not Boba Fett. What's his name? I hate it when your mind goes blank. Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
I'm sure Jabba the Hutt wasn't a creature.
No.
Every time they brought something out and it changes. He had the original VHS, and every time we'd watch it and go, "That's different. That's different. They've added this, and all the way up to this stupid one now where they've made the Ewoks blink. Everything's different now, so you can't go out and watch the original one because there's been 50 different re-edits of that film."
When they did the original, if memory serves me correctly, when they did the original Star Wars, Jabba the Hutt was in it, and they had him as a human character.
Yeah, when they're in the scene with the Millennium Falcon, yeah.
Yeah, and it didn't work, so they cut it out. And then when they did the remasters, when they redid it, they put it back in as a new scene with the computer-generated Jabba the Hutt that we know now. And there's a bit where Han Solo walks behind him, and it's really badly done.
Copy and paste him. Yeah.
It looks really bad, even though it was meant to be done properly. But yeah, that's how it was.
But yeah, so that was say game
Star Wars tangent.
Star Wars. Yeah, and the tangent though. After that, I think this is when I started really getting into gaming again for myself. It was probably this sort of time that I got my first job and started buying consoles I'd wanted when I was younger. So the next one is actually the N64. So I'd gone backwards. I think I'd bought it from the local game shop when it used to be the game shop that's still there now, but it had moved premises. And so I got the N64 again. Pokemon, massive games on there. So Pokemon Stadium, the ability to obviously battle your Pokemon, but then to transfer from your Game Boy game, you could do that.
The transfer pack.
Pokemon Snap. Just because it was Pokemon, I played it, but I fell in love with it because it was so different, and because it is a bit like an on-rail shooter, but not, and half the battle in the original Pokemon Snap is being able to get the camera to move around quick enough without missing something. It's like you're a dodgy tourist or something, or you're not a very good cameraman filming. Do you ever watch Top Gear where they always laugh about the fact that they can't film wildlife? That's what it's like.
Yes.
You're not used to watching that. So yeah, I always used to miss all the secrets and stuff like that. Obviously, you've got your Star Wars, your Rogue Squadron, the first one. That's a fantastic game.
Oh, it is a great game. Oh yeah, love that game.
Just that you listen to all the music and the sound effects, it takes you back to watching those original movies. And then Star Wars Pod Racer from obviously Episode 1, a racing game. But it was, and I remember that in the arcade when you used to have the actual Anakin's pod, and you'd have the actual controllers trying to get on camera. But the ones where you push them forward.
Yeah.
That in the arcade was amazing. Being able to do one forward and one back to turn yours. That was great. And obviously Mario 64, because obviously I'd never, other than playing them on the Game Boy, I'd never really had any experience with Mario. So to go from Game Boy to Mario 64, this 3D world, that was a fantastic game as well. And it's a great system that I've only recently got back. I'm just waiting on an AV cable to be able to play it again. So when I get that sorted, I'll be into that, getting some bits for it. After that, I went to the PS3, got that one on launch, I believe, from Game Station, because I used to have an hour's lunch on my break. Always going to Game Station because between them and Game Station used to sell a lot more retro. You know what I mean? You'd go in there, you'd find your PS1 and all that sort of stuff. So I'd be back in buying those sorts of things, looking at it. And there was another game shop in Dolby called Another World. So downstairs, it would have the more current games and maybe a bit of music as well. And you go upstairs and they'd have comics, figures, and like retro for the time games. So I'd say go in and get bits for that. And the PS3 was a fantastic system. But having that, because the first game I got with it was I don't know if it was a packing one, but it was a launch title, was Lair, where you played
I've not played it, I've heard of it, but
having the 6-axis controller. So when I first played that, and the fact that I could tilt my controller and the dragon would tilt, and move and fly, and I was like, this is next level stuff. I thought that was fantastic.
I never felt the
It's not a
six-axis
fantastic
controller
game,
was great.
but
Yeah,
it was for what you'd had previously. It was wow, this is so different. Obviously, again, you've got your Blu-ray player. Blu-ray players. I remember. I think my brother bought one of the first ones, and it was like $1,000.
Cool.
My older brother had bought one, and he was like, "Oh, I've just got this Blu-ray player," and I thought, well, at the time, you got the PlayStation, you can play Blu-rays. It's Sony, so you knew it'd be good. But you got a game system as well, so I was like, why buy one or the other? Why not have it all in one? And you've got your apps on there to be able to play your YouTube and all that sort of stuff as well. Netflix in time when that stopped being a postal delivery thing with the films to becoming the streaming.
Love film, wasn't it? Love film, yeah.
Yeah. So for that, and obviously on those, I've got like the Simpsons game. Simpsons game's a classic. I know it had come out on the PS2, but for me, I played it on the PS3, and that game really is not. It's dropped a bit in price, but it's still up there into. It's not a cheap PlayStation game, and that was a great game again because I'd love the Simpsons. The Spider-Man games on there, so not
good.
necessarily ones based on the movies, but the one I've got written down is Shattered Dimensions. So it's the one where you're on the different ones. So playing like the is it the one that the noir ones where it's black and white?
Yeah, I've got it. I mean, on the Wii behind me, and I can't.
Or you could play as Spider-Man in the future and stuff like that. That was so different for me.
I don't know if I can reach it.
I played on the PS1 versions and stuff, and they were great at the time.
That's the one there, isn't it?
Yeah, you could play as all them different Spider-Men, you know.
Yeah.
And it was such a great game. Still quite expensive, that one is on the PS3. You're probably looking at over £30.
Quite a few. I don't know. Did Nell buy Web of Shadows for 42 quid?
Yeah, that's the one that's got Wolverine on the front as well. Yeah, that one. You've got your Batman game, so Batman Arkham Asylum.
The Arkham
Again,
trilogy.
a big Batman fan when I was playing it on the Master System. To play that game and to feel like you were Batman, you were doing the detective side of stuff as well as this creating fear for enemies. It was all part of it. That was a fantastic game. Assassin's Creed. That felt really different. I remember, sounds a bit daft, but the thing that really blew me away in Assassin's Creed was walking through a crowd of people and your character would move as if like a person. So you would move your body, move your arm to the side to push them out the way a bit. And I thought that was weird because in most games you would walk through a crowd and they would part like a pins on a bowling thing. Whereas with this
you're
one,
actually pushing your way through, aren't you?
It was more realistic, and that was the sort of thing that really, I think the PS3 was a real generation that games started to look far more realistic and started to put thought into: are they moving like real people, or are they just moving like a generic character?
I know what you mean.
Another one, Star Wars, so Force Unleashed. Absolutely loved 1 and 2. Like the story in that was fantastic. I know it's over exaggerated powers, but I can't remember whether it was in 1 or 2 where I think you've got like is it a Star Destroyer? My memory, why does it always go when you need it? The big triangular ones.
Yeah, it's the destroyer,
yeah.
isn't it?
I'm pretty sure there's one of them coming at you, and you're on this walkway. I think it's in the rain.
Haven't you?
And the fact that you could hold it there, and you're like, oh my god, this is how I imagine Darth Vader would have been in the original ones if they have made them now. He would have been that. Like, I love Rogue One. My favourite bit of Rogue One is the last 5 minutes where he just rips them guys to shreds, and you see a bit of his power. You hear about how strong he's supposed to be in the first 3 films, and you never see it. You know, he just in the end he just turns into a bit of an asthmatic. I don't know what it looks like, but you never really see his abilities. Yet in this game, obviously he's part of the story, and you see what power a Jedi could really have. Because even in the films, you'd not really seen it. But this game was fantastic, and to be this mystical like Jedi, not Jedi sort of character. They were great. Both games were really good on that. Prototype, if you've ever played that.
I've again not played it, but I know of it. I think I
The,
may
the,
even
sec-
have it somewhere.
the second game I didn't like because the main character in the first game sort of becomes the baddie in the second game, and I didn't like it because you'd grown attached to that character. To have him the baddie sort of put a bit of a taint on it. But this was a guy that had got this, I think it was like some kind of weird infection going on him where he could mutate, and a bit like Venom, I could make things out of his arms or whatever, or fly. You could upgrade your character. Eventually, you could fly, or you could create shields or whatever. That was a fantastic game. Again, I think PS3, Xbox 360 sort of time was when, and obviously having the disposable income as well, just constantly buying stuff, and I'll probably have bits of collections, probably a small collection, because I wouldn't be selling to buy the next console. I would just be keeping it.
I understand. Yeah.
And then I've got X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Great,
Movie's a bit dodge, but the game's really good. The only thing that frustrated me was constantly going to and from his past to the future. So you just be getting used to fighting with him with the adamantium claws, and then you go back and you've got these bone ones. You're like, I'm weaker now. What's going on? I want to be the one that you remember watching as a kid. Is him with the metal claws ripping everything up.
Yeah.
And then the last one I put.
Terrible film, but yeah, good game. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I've got Civilization Revolution, it's called, on the PS3. So another Civilization game. Again, just the fact that it was on the PlayStation. But around this sort of time, I sort of had the 360. For me, obviously, there's a lot of games at 360 and PS3, so I was more of a PlayStation guy than an Xbox. I purely got the Xbox because it had a Star Trek game on that PS3 didn't have. And probably my favourite game on the 360 is called Star Trek Legacy, which again is very similar. You play a story mode in a ship.
Yeah.
Where you control one ship and one button fires your phaser, one button fires your photon torpedo, stuff like that. Or you can do skirmishes, and you can pick so many ships. You get like a budget of like, I don't know, say 1,500 quid. You buy what ships you can, the best you can with the money, and you go out there and battle the other races, see who can win. And there's nothing like it really for me, that you're flying around and you think you're doing well, and then suddenly this massive, I mean, I don't know if you know much about Star Trek, but or into it, but
not a lot, no.
But basically there's a race in there called the Borg, and they kick ass wherever they go, because they adapt technology from other people. They incorporate other races into them to improve themselves. The technology is far superior, and they fly around in massive cubes, essentially, as their main vessel. But it could be 100 times the size of the Federation's ship. So you'll be flying around thinking you're doing well, and all of a sudden this ball cube warps into your sector, and you're like, shit, I've got to get my game face on now. And you've got its real tactics into it as well. And again, I think I bought it just for that. I mean, other than some of the Halo games, there's nothing really that keeps me going with the Xbox. It's mainly PlayStation.
Well, if you're a big fan of Star Trek, you're going to buy it, aren't you? So it's sort of.
But that sort of time, I was constantly like, I'd be like, okay, I've got a PS3 now, and I go, oh, I fancy playing this game on the Xbox. I'll just get rid of I'll trade in the PlayStation, get an Xbox 360. I'll play this game. Oh, I'm a bit bored now. Got a Wii when they first came out. I remember my mum, bless her, she got that for me when it first came out, when it was really difficult to get. I think she hunted it down for maybe like Toys R Us or something, but she managed to get one for me, and maybe like 2 or 3 for the people at the place I was working at the time. So when they were really difficult to get, she probably got a hold of 4 of them, because when she sets her mind to it, she really she'll get you what you need to get. And so I got a Wii as well, played on that, and for years and years I'd have a PS3, an Xbox 360, then a Wii. Then I go, oh, I want to play this game on the PS3, so I'll get a PS3 now. And then I go, oh, but I want a 360. And I would swap and change, like every week there'd be one of them back in the house again.
Yeah.
I did that for many a year. And until then, really, it got to in between that, I sort of had some of the handhelds. So I had the DS when that first came out, the original one with the sort of angled sides. I remember buying the Game Boy Micro on launch. I remember pre-ordering that from Game Station and picking up. I had the green Game Boy Micro, and just purely to play at work. So I'd sit there. Obviously, it was a tiny little console, and
I remember
be on my
seeing
lunch
them. Yeah,
break
I never had one.
and just play it. Like the screen is tiny. It's like the size of an old mobile phone. But you could sit and play your games at work, and I thought that was fantastic. And then after that, it went to the modern stuff. So you've got your PS4, first one I had.
Yeah.
I have had an Xbox One, but I've since got rid of that because again, I just don't. I used it mainly as a Blu-ray player because it used to play 4K Blu-rays. Wasn't really interested in the games. PS3 for me has always done better with the exclusives, and as maybe because I'm more of a PlayStation guy as I've grown up, I'm used to the controller. For me to have that offset analog sticks on the Xbox controller really throws me off. And because I'm used to PlayStation, if I go into Xbox for a game, I would struggle to adapt to it.
See, I've always loved the PlayStation 3. I think it's a great system, and it's nice to hear somebody say it because a lot of people prefer the 360 over it, and not so many people, like the PlayStation. But I got far more out of that system than
because I'm sort of on that little cool mission now of getting rid of stuff that actually I've not got the nostalgia for, and maybe I'm not that bothered about. I am slowly getting rid of my original Xbox and 360 collection and rebuying the games on PlayStation 3. I've got a few waiting now to be filmed in the pickups. My last pickup, I got the Godzilla game on it, which is quite a pricey one. On the PS3, I've got some of the ones that I like playing. No, it's just called Godzilla.
Ah, right. Oh, yes, I think I've seen that one. Yeah.
That one,
yes, I've seen you showing that.
Yeah. I'm starting to get through, trying to pick up the more sought after titles first, interspersed with sort of games that I remember having when I was, because PS3 and Xbox 360 really, you go into CEX, you can get decent games for under a tenner. You could take a tenner with you. You could come back with probably 5 or 6 amazing games for a tenner. And that's what I love about it at the minute, which is why I think I want to go for it now before people start getting that sort of 20, 30 year nostalgia and go, do you know what, I really want this, and try and get ahead of the game now.
We're getting there, aren't we? We're about 15 years or so, aren't we? So we're not far away from that point in time, aren't we? Yeah.
So I'd rather do it now.
Yeah, that's a tremendous history you've got there, and all the
it's a bit of everything.
Systems and all the way through. Yeah, that's the great thing about it.
But it all ends with the Switch. I mean, at the minute, the Switch is my favourite one. If a game comes out on any of the modern consoles, the Switch is the one I get. Even though typically it tends to be more expensive for the worst quality game because of obviously the Switch's power. But there's just something about it I love. It's got a bit of everything. You can have your older games or you can have your fantastic newer games, and it's not, to me, Nintendo's not about fancy graphics or anything like that. It's just gameplay. If you've got good gameplay,
always has been.
And obviously with us all liking old games, we must have something about the gameplay, because half the time the graphics are shit because it's an older system. So,
well, you and I know from playing 2600 games, it didn't have to be
graphics. Yeah. No, so yeah, that's the history.
Yeah. Well, that leaves us just 2 games to go then, mate. So we're reaching the end. Now, we got your hated game to finish on, which we'll come to in a second. You've touched on this one briefly so far. This is your second chance game. And you haven't mentioned it before. So just remind us what that was.
I have to go back to, so it was Final Fantasy X on the PS2. So I remember I wanted to put this in because it's a game that I really, really do love. I say it was about that time in my life where I needed to escape reality, and this did it for me. And it's a game where I got so close to completing, probably I either gave up with it or just couldn't be bothered to put the hours in, because obviously Final Fantasy are very grind heavy games. You do need to grind to be able to beat because you will meet a boss that will just kick your ass until you go back. So I remember when I was younger, I actually had to, I think I went on YouTube, probably one of the first times I went on YouTube, to watch the ending, to see what the ending was, because I loved it that much, but because I couldn't finish it. So I wanted to pick this because it was a game that I thought, if I've got the time and I try and teach myself patience now. Doesn't always work. But I think you can teach yourself to like something maybe, or maybe appreciate it more. A bit like with food, the stuff that you didn't like as a kid that you might love now because you've trained yourself to have it or whatever. Like with games, I think I can teach myself this patience to stick at it, complete it properly, but not only complete it, but I know it's a massive game after you finish the main story to then go on, and there's tons of stuff you can do after the main story. So I wanted to put, because of what that game meant to me from a personal thing that was going on outside of gaming, it is something I wanted to put the time in to finish, to say, yeah, that game that means a lot to me, I have finished, and properly 100% it, like with Grand Theft Auto 3. I want to go back and say, yes, I have 100%ed that game. There is nothing more I could do. And it's a big game, which helps if you're stuck on a desert island. You've got plenty of time to get into it.
That's it. I was going to say it's a sort of game for it, really. And I think you know your reasoning, as you said earlier, and just saying it's slightly different from what some people would have done. Is that they had just they got to a certain point, but because it was, as you said, quite an important and significant point in your life, then it's to go back and put that effort in to complete it and finally see it for yourself, rather than watch what happened on YouTube.
It always felt like a bit of a cop out, but if I could do it myself, that would be fantastic.
And that personal sense of achievement to complete that circle as such on your life as well, which is a very, very good reason for doing it. And I think that's probably maybe the most emotional reason for somebody picking a game in this particular slot as well, which I think is quite good as well. So all fair play that one, man. That's a very, very good choice. So we've reached the end. We've got one game to talk about now, which is the one we like people to come on and finish on a bad note and basically get rid of the tension that's been building for the previous 3 hours and just sort of let it all hang out and have a bit of a rant at the end. And it's interesting. We talked at great length about this system earlier on, and I was talking to somebody else the other day about this game. I must be honest with you, although I do actually have a copy of this game, I've never actually played it, although it's one of my favourite games on other systems. And then I can't remember who I was talking to about it. And they were saying, "Oh, it's terrible. You're only presented with one choice of character, and it's all flickering, horrible, and just not the same." So the game you're finishing on, the game which you don't want to take with you to the desert island, I'm going to make you take anyway. It is
Golden Axe on the Master System.
On the Master System, Golden Axe. Oh man!
So obviously, a lot of people love this game, and to watch it, I love watching people play it. But for me, because obviously I'd never had the Mega Drive, playing it on the Master System, I'm not sure whether it's exactly the same on the Mega Drive actually, but this game gives me the biggest amount of frustration because. Like you play something like Streets of Rage, like a beat 'em up style one. You get hit, you got knocked down, and you get back up again, and you feel like you're still in the fight with this. I find with Golden Axe, the frustration, especially when the characters are sitting on them bloody weird things with beaks and long tails, if they knock you down, oh my god! I've seen turtles on their back get up faster, and by the time you eventually get up, they've hit you again, and then you end up on your arse again. And it's like perpetual just being knocked on your arse. And I feel like this isn't. I just get the frustration of this isn't fair. If I could get up, I could do something. And every time I've gone, I've tried to go. Do you know what? If it's going well, this game's all right. But when it does that. Oh my! I could launch that cartridge through the window. It just drives me up the wall. That it's just that. Oh, maybe I'm not very good at it, but it just seems very unfair that if you've got the wrong amount of characters on the screen, if you get knocked over, if you've got like a couple of normal characters walking around and one of them creatures, if that keeps whipping you and knocking you down, you may as well not bother, because you ain't going to get back up by the time somebody else has come in and hit you and done exactly the same. And I'm like, oh, forget it. It's.
Is it just this particular version that you don't like, or is it just Golden Axe in general?
I don't like it for that reason. I don't know, because I've not played the other iterations. I've not played it on the Mega Drive, and I don't know whether they're the same. Maybe maybe the Master System version was maybe it was slower in its animation of you getting back up to then be able to fight. I'm not sure. I'd have to watch some gameplay on it and see. But I think, like I say, to watch it, I'm quite happy to watch someone play it. But if they keep getting knocked down, I get that same feeling inside of fucking hell, what's it, and I just get that internal frustration come flooding back. And it's a game I know that everyone's like, oh, it's it's really good, you should play it. And I just think, I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
I agree with this. The point I get annoyed with is when you get the skeletons, because and not so much at the start, but as you get further, they get a little bit more difficult each time. And yeah, that does annoy the hell out of me sometimes. I just can't get past them some days. I think I'm maybe even thinking about the second one as well, the second game on the Mega Drive. There's probably a point in that as another, not the skeletons, but another character saying at the same point in the game. Again, if you get knocked down, it's very difficult to get back up again.
Yeah.
But this is the game I completed so many times on the Amiga straight through. It was I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was, years and years ago when I played it first time. I really did enjoy it, and I do enjoy playing it since then. I must be honest with you. My games playing is nowhere near as good as before, because I played the PlayStation 3 Mega Drive Classics version of it, which is exactly the same game, and I suck at that now. And when I had the second one on the Mega Drive, I used to play through that and finish it quite comfortably and no problem getting through the game. I used to love that game. But
I happily avoid it.
So it does annoy me sometimes, but I have fond memories of it from years ago, sitting quite nicely. So when I played it recently, I was like, I'm a bit disappointed now. Perhaps, and then I thought, well, it's not the game, it's me, because I used to be very good at this game, and now I'm not very good at it. So it's got to be me, not the game. I think. I don't know, but I do sympathise with getting knocked over all the time, because it does get very annoying.
It just stilts the enjoyment for me, and I just can't get into it. Then it just probably frustration.
It's the same though. Any game you're playing, like a single player, where you've got enemies on the screen and you get ganged up on. It's exactly the same in anything like that. When you're playing Streets of Rage, Double Dragon, Golden Axe, it's exactly the same. There's always some point in the game where you get really, really pissed off because you keep getting knocked over and you can't clear the screen quickly enough. There's too many enemies on the screen. This is so unfair, and then you just pick the cartridge up, throw it to the window, and that's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I do sympathise with that. Yeah, I do sympathise with that. It's a shame it's Golden Axe, though. It's a shame it's Golden Axe, because I know a lot of people do love that game.
That's just the one I remember from being a youngster.
Yeah.
The frustration.
It's also the first time. It's the first time it's cropped up as well. So you put it in the death slot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh dear, that's a shame.
But as I was trying to think at the time, is there something I really hate? And I'm not that sort of person that really hates anything in life, but I remember that really frustrated me. It's more frustration that gets me than being angry or anything. So that's why I have to put it in.
If you don't if you go through life without not feeling that other than towards Golden Axe, then Golden Axe must be really bad.
I've done well.
You've done well. Yes, you've done well. And you have done well, because we've reached the end. We've made our way through, and that was again another fascinating journey through your gaming history. Started a little bit later than probably one of the sort of later in terms of age.
I mean, that was like all the other ones where you sort of say that they always think that they won't have anything to say and they won't fill the time, but I've obviously gone on quite a bit. We've had a few tangents here and there, haven't we?
Well, that's it. Yeah, I think you're probably in the top 5 of length of time to go through this, but it's always it's good. Honestly, it's one of the things that people do enjoy listening to. They do enjoy listening to people talking about games and things that interest them, and other people who listen to that love it.
Yeah,
actually, somebody else who's exactly the same as me, and if,
like I say, I love it because I love listening to it. The only downside of doing one is that I won't be listening to this one because it's me. You're seeing the guys there.
Oh, you have to listen to it. I always challenge people to listen.
I can't stand my own voice. I don't even listen back to my videos.
I said the same to Craig Goodwin because he said he listened to them all the time, and I said, "Well, will you listen to yours?" He goes, "I might." I know there's a bit of narcissism comes in. I think you go, "Oh no, I want to listen to myself to this." So that's
Yeah.
I'm the same. I'm listening to myself doing it, so I don't like listening to myself doing it, but I do have to listen to it because Claire likes listening to him on the telly on the Saturday morning. So she puts that on, and I put the tablet on and go and do something else. It's always fun. Listen, mate, it's been fabulous having you on, and I hope that there are people out there who, I hope there are people out there who have perhaps not heard about your channel before, or go across and have a look at that now. There will be a link in the description below, and indeed, there may be people who've seen you popping up in the comments and the live chat, and hopefully they'll tie the two together and listen to this, and then go across to your channel and see what you're all about. But it's great. I said we've met in real life. You're a top chap, and I've really enjoyed this, and honestly, there's a lot of interest there in things that you like and I like. So I think there may be an opportunity to do something else slightly different at some point as well, which would be
just let me know.
Yeah, we'd like to do that, and I think if you and I ever sit down again, have a cup of coffee or something, we'll have plenty to talk about. That's for sure. Anyway,
I'm sure we'll meet up at Dana's at some point, won't we, sir?
We will do. Anyway, Liam, thank you very much indeed for being a guest on here this week. It's been an absolute pleasure. And as I said, link to your channel below. It's been an absolute delight doing that. In the meantime, we will be back again, same time, same channel, same place, etc. next week for another episode of Desert Island Games, which I hope you'll enjoy as much as these. If you haven't heard the previous episode, they're in the archive below. But that's it. So we'll see you again very, very soon. But until then, this is the Retro Bear saying thank you very much indeed for listening. And